Welcome back, guys, to Jake ELLENBOGEN Live, brought to you guys by Manscaped. You can go over to manscaped.com and type in promo code JKB, get 20% off and free shipping off your manscaped.com order. We have my guy. You've seen him before if you watch the Marvel special. We have Mr. Cole Thompson. How we doing, my guy?
Dude, I'm tired. I mean, it's Tuesday. I'm tired. Everyone's tired, though. Let's be real. I can't complain when I know everyone else who does this for a living, does this for a job, does this for fun even. I mean, there's so many people who just do this for fun, literally are just staying up doing nonstop action on this. So I'm good, but I'm more excited I get to be on your show. Make sure that you check out Jake every single time you can, and he is presented by Manscaped. That's awesome. I remember Jake when he was just starting out, and you know what? I'm very proud of him seeing where he is now. I mean, it's really awesome to see someone who's putting the hard work like he has to grow, and I get to be a guest on a show, so I'm actually really pumped about that.
Man, that was very touching. I really appreciate that. I met you at the Senior Bowl, and
You did.
I read a Matt Miller article saying, like, you got to go to the Senior Bowl. Like, I met this guy and this guy and this guy, and this guy got his start, and this guy works for the Chiefs. And I was like, man, like, as soon as I read the article, I was like, I got to go to the Senior Bowl. And then I ran into this guy, and, like, you were, like, showing me the ropes. Like, I was so new to it, like, had no idea. Just kind of, walking around like a lost dog. And, you came over, and I was just sitting watching prospects, and you came over, and then now we're friends. It's however many years later, what, 3 or 4?
It's something like that. I'll tell you this, though. I went to my first Senior Bowl when I interned for Matt Miller. So when I got to have that opportunity, I kind of was taught the same thing. It's just like, yeah, I go to the Senior Bowl. I promise you, you're going to meet more people that are going to be more open with you to help build your career and learn when you do that. And I was able to do that at a very young age. I think I did that first at 21 or 22 years old. Now I'm 27. So I've gone every year except for the 1 year I worked for the Alliance of American Football. RIP to that. And this past year because of COVID-19. So unfortunately, those two things, it just was a little different. But I don't plan on missing again. And I plan on catching up and having a drink with you at Beats as soon as possible.
Yes. As soon as possible. I, like you, did not go to the Senior Bowl this year. Just like you said, COVID-19. But speaking of the Senior Bowl, that's part of that's like the opener to the draft season, essentially. And we are going to be talking draft. Mainly, we're going to be talking about your first round mock draft as opposed to mine. We will go through. Ours are probably a little similar. I was looking and I'm like, okay, I even had that trade. Okay, all right. So we're going to go through that, have some fun with that. And then afterwards, for you Rams fans out there, because I have to, please my audience that got me, going. We're going to have a Rams style, centric mock draft. I'm going to unveil my final mock draft. That's it. It's all she wrote. It's over after that. I'm not doing any more 6.0, 7.0. This will be it. And Cole, you can grade me and you can chime in if you have one as well.
I do.
But we're going to have some fun with this.
I have my picks for the Rams. I did do that earlier today. So
I
have some Rams selections I very much like. It's not going to happen. I promise you that. It's not going to happen. Let's see us not get my guys, because somehow using the Draft Network and Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator, people don't like a guy who I think could be a first-round pick or even a really early second-round pick to fall to round 4. I mean, it just doesn't happen that way. So I just want to
I hear you, man. And hey, if it happens, from the way you're saying it, sounds like I'm going to like this person. So if you guys want to know, you guys have to stay tuned for the entirety of the show. That's how that works.
Don't go away. Just stay on this right now.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to look over here to my screen, and we'll just start off. I mean, we know number 1 overall, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I mean, why are we starting the draft at 1? We're really going to wait. We're going to sit there and we're going to wait for them to announce a pick that's been announced since they clinched the number 1 overall pick. Come on.
That's been announced since week 14 when Jacksonville. Yeah, I think it was week 14 when the Jets beat Jared Goff. I'm sorry about that, but I think since that moment, that's been.
I love that you said Jared Goff, because they don't lose that. they don't lose that if it's John Wolford or Matthew Stafford or even Bryce Perkins.
I
Maybe
honestly
Bryce Perkins.
Yeah, honestly, that was Jared Goff game. Like, that was a straight up Jared Goff loss. Like, and I am a guy who has actually defended Jared Goff a lot in the past. That's Jared Goff.
You have.
That is a Jared Goff loss.
That was all on him. I mean,
Jacksonville should be sending Detroit like a really nice pick, like in a trade somewhere because they got Trevor Lawrence. That's how nice they should be to Detroit right now because they got that pick. So that pick's been in since week 14. I think that also with pick number 2, we can just get this out of the way. That pick's been in since the trade with San Francisco because originally it was reported and it's been confirmed that Philadelphia wanted to move up to number 3, but they were only going to move up for one guy, and it was going to be Zach Wilson. So if Zach Wilson wasn't going to be there at 3, they weren't going to move up. So, with the ties of Joe Douglas, with the ties of Robert Saleh, with the ties of all this with Philadelphia, with San Francisco, we know who's going number 2. So we can get that out of the way.
Yeah, I'm just over here crying because I've already telepathically heard who the Rams are going to pick. Now I'm having some random allergic reaction, but I'm just going to say it's draft related and I've seen the future and I don't like it. So number 3, who do we got for the 49ers? I think you and I have the same guy. I don't want to have the same guy as you. I'd prefer he doesn't go there. And I think I just spoiled it because everybody knows how I feel about him. But who do you have?
I have Trey Lance because if I've had Trey Lance at the trade, I have never gotten off that hype train. Here's the biggest thing. If it's not Trey Lance, this is the biggest thing that I've said for a while. I actually don't mind Mac Jones as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I really don't. I see a lot of Kirk Cousins, and I think that, Kirk Cousins is successful. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying it's Kirk Cousins. We know what Kirk Cousins is. We've seen what Kirk Cousins can do. We've been around Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins is starting right now. Mac Jones is starting right now. You're not starting with Jimmy Garoppolo still on the roster, and Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on the roster for 2021. You can't get rid of that contract. I don't think you can really move him, and you're not going to move him unless it's for a first-round pick. It's already kind of been announced. So at that point, you got to go with the upside kid, and you got to go with the kid who you have on a cheaper contract, and also I think you can build around. Let's also keep in mind that this is not a normal number 3 pick, and it wasn't a normal number 3 pick no matter when it was Miami picking or when it was San Francisco picking because of either way, it belonged to the Houston Texans, and that went over with the Laremy Tunsil deal. This is a team that's kind of built to win now and win long term. They got, a rookie guy in Brandon Ayuk still on the deal. They're going to re-sign Fred Warner to a long-term deal. I think that they're going to use that 43 pick to address the cornerback issue. And they're a cornerback away from being a really stout defense. A lot of their guys still on the rookie deals. You don't really have to pay that many players. And the players that you do have to pay, you've already done with Trent Williams. And everyone else, I think, is going to be pretty affordable. So you don't need that quarterback. You need the quarterback on that rookie deal that has more upside. And it's very similar to what we saw with Josh Allen. Year 1, you realized he was going to be bad. And a lot of people were already off the Josh Allen hype train. A lot of people were already, over Josh Allen before he even took a snap for the Buffalo Bills. Like, that's how crazy it was when he got drafted. So
that's true.
Year 2, you got him the right OC. You got him the right quarterback coach in Brian Dable and Ken Dorsey. And year 3, you got him the weapon and Stephon Diggs. What did he do? He went to the AFC Championship. He's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and I was 100% right by saying he was QB1. So I'm going to take my spot, and I'm going to say that I was awesome on making that pick. But more importantly, I think Trey Lance can be that exact same type guy. I think that if you give him a year, let him learn, let him develop, the guy's decision-making is out the realm. I mean, the dude can play football, number 1, and his decision-making skills are top-notch. Guy threw 28 touchdowns, scored 42 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions in 17 games. I mean, I don't know if you consider that good or not. I consider that pretty dang good. I consider that mental processing pretty dang good. And I know that with the level of talent he's going to have in San Francisco, it's going to be really good. You just got to give him a year. So I have Trey Lance going at pick number 3.
So I do as well. And I know people would be like especially Rams fans, because, dude, I'm asked this literally every day, all day. Tell me, Jake, are the 49ers legit taking Mac Jones? And I've been saying yes for the most part, but I just feel, honestly, I feel like they are, but I'm picking Trey Lance because this is my number 1 quarterback in the draft, as you know. And I've gone out. It's very controversial. I've had that about a year and a half. He's been my guy. So I feel like my guy, it's only fair. I watched my guy, George Kittle, go to the Niners. You know, I've seen this movie before. So Trey Lance will go to the 49ers. I agree with you. And I think...
Here's the thing, though. And let's go this. Mac Jones, again, I think he can win. I think Justin Fields can win. I think that no matter who goes to San Francisco is going to be successful. They're going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. But if they're not, and it's Mac Jones, and it is Mac Jones, the guy that Kyle Shanahan is pounding the table, trading 3 picks away, trading a 3rd-round pick away. I want Mac Jones, McCorkle. You're fired. I mean, you're fired if you don't get it right. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Kyle Shanahan will get another shot. Here's how we know. His dad, Mike Shanahan, got another shot. His dad, Mike Shanahan, was a Super Bowl winning coach. And he did it with the Broncos, and he got another shot in Washington, and he stayed around the game for a very long time. Kyle Shanahan will get another shot. But he's done in San Francisco if Mac Jones is the pick and it fizzles out. Because if you gave him your guy, and you're still going to get it done. So, again, you know, that's my thing. If you get Trey Lance, I think you get another shot. If you take Mac Jones, your guy, and he doesn't work, you are firing up that resume and being an OC for a year.
You see that? You see that? Do you see what I deal with?
Trust me. I hear it all the time. I'm an Alabama alum. I mean, I hear it all the time from fans. I hear it all the time from my people back in Tuscaloosa. Is Mac Jones really going number 3? I mean, the reports say they are, but again, 49ers want an intelligent quarterback more so than anybody with physical skills who can't process information quickly. I don't know about you guys. Trey Lance can process pretty quick. I mean, the problem is that the problem is that he can process pretty quick. He also gets that ball out really quick, and you don't want that on a 5-yard out route coming in at 75 miles an hour.
That's a great point.
I mean, that's the biggest thing about Trey Lance, and people are like, don't understand that I talk about. It's not that Trey Lance is not pro ready. Trey Lance has one speed. It's fastball straight down the middle every time on a 5-yard slant. You want to lead the guy. You don't want to take his head off. I mean, if he starts week 1 on the slant, Deebo Samuel's going to have a concussion within about an hour. Because of it's just going to be, hey, think, boom, done. All right, pause the game. I mean, like, that's it. Just give him time. The processing's there.
Man.
The skills are there. It's not about processing information quickly. It's about finding that touch. And he doesn't have that touch. That's what Josh Allen's biggest flaw was. He didn't have a touch.
Yes.
He had one speed. And everyone was like, no, he's terrible. He's going to be bad. No, he had one speed. He went to Ken Dorsey. He practiced all offseason. He went to Brian Dable. He's now an all-pro level quarterback. He
needs to stop running 41 yards backwards and taking sacks. But, yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, he did a lot of bad stuff his first year. What do you want? He's a rookie. And people gave up on him. At least no one gave up on him like Josh Rosen. I mean, Josh Rosen was put in like the worst situation possible, and everyone blamed him for it.
Guys, what do I always tell you? The young quarterback ecosystem in this league is dead. You literally have to be a star from the get-go, or you can be gone. Look at Drew Lock. I've been saying this. I know people are like, Denver needs to trade up and get a quarterback. Why? They gave up a second. They traded, or not traded. They picked him in the 2nd round. Drew Lock, his first year, he barely plays, right? His 2nd year, he has a shoulder injury and literally was not the same. On top of it, he didn't have Cortland Sutton, who was going to go off this year. He was ready. He was primed to explode, and he gets hurt. So he loses his number 1 wide receiver. And then it's like immediately get rid of him. He's done. So he didn't even really play a full year, if you ask me. I mean, like it's around that, but like, I mean, how many games did he start realistically?
I mean, he's played about 17 games. I think that if he was
so he's played about 1 year.
If he was a 1st-round pick, you wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, like that's just kind of it. You wouldn't be like he still would be the starting quarterback.
I think if they were higher, right? So if they were higher and a quarterback was there, like if they were in a position, like say they're at 3, you're taking a quarterback. I'm okay with that. Fine.
You're at 9? No. If he's a 1st-round pick, no. I think you give him 1 more year. If he's a 2nd-round pick, yeah, 100%. You give up on 2nd-round picks. I see it all the time. I mean, that's just it. But the same thing is, I think the argument is made, do they take a quarterback at 9 if their quarterback is there. And I think that that's a valid argument. No, I don't think they're going to take Mac Jones at 3. Also, yeah, I agree with you, Renee House. Jimmy G is going to be the starting quarterback this year. Like he's going to be the starting quarterback. And that's my problem with taking Mac Jones. Mac Jones needs to play this year. Trey Lance is not. If that's the sense, then you cannot play Trey Lance. Like, you got to take Trey Lance.
Yeah, I agree. You have to take Trey Lance as much as it would pain me. Okay. All right. So we go back to, I just had your thing up and it's now gone. Awesome. That's great. So, 4. Okay. Pick number 4. Yes. Oh, well, we have the same pick here. So, okay. Yeah. I mean, this is where it's trending, I think, especially with the Julio Jones news. I feel like they're kind of replacing him in a sense, getting that weapon. If they get rid of him, of course. I personally wouldn't. I'd like to have Julio and this guy and Calvin and Russell Gage and Hayden Hurst. But sounds like they could. So pick 4, we both have Kyle Pitts going to the Atlanta Falcons.
My going here is just there's not a trade. Like you want everything for the number 4 pick, and nobody's gonna give it up. Like nobody's gonna give it up. Like what you want. You're not gonna get that 3 first-round pick that you got from San Francisco. So at that point, you can't take a defensive player. And I want them to trade back. You know, I've talked to people, and they like Patrick Surtain. And if he's the pick at 4, I'm not gonna be shocked. I'm really not. But
really.
I'm not, because if they like Patrick Surtain, I've heard from all the people they like Patrick Surtain, but you can't take him at 4. You can take him at 9. You can take him at, I'd say if Carolina was there and Carolina was in a different division, you know, because it's an in-division trade, you never see those happen. If it was an other division, yeah, you could take him at 8 and nobody's complaining. But I do think at 4, it's a reach. And that's why you got to go best player available. And best player available is Kyle Pitts. And yeah, he's a tight end. You have Hayden Hurst, but you can do a lot of things with tight ends, and just, you know, you can run a lot of 12-man personnel. And the biggest thing of all is that, you know, you can just move him around and he can be a guy who does a little bit of everything. That's like, I think the biggest thing.
No, I think that brings up a good point, because then, you know, at 4, if they're interested in Surtain, really they only have to do is trade down to 9, right? Because you just want to stay above the Cowboys. I mean, I think so. I think they're prime position to get him. And so if that's the case, then who's to say that a Denver Broncos team that we were just talking about does go up and they do get their quarterback? And to be honest with you, like, I wouldn't be hating on them if they did. I don't think Mac Jones would be a severe upgrade over Drew Lock. I wouldn't be a fan of that. But if they did that for Justin Fields, now we're talking. Because I have an elite grade on 4 quarterbacks. Mac Jones I actually have as my 6th quarterback, and I really liked him. I like Bama. I like him. But I really like Davis Mills at 5. So I wouldn't draft either of them in the first round. I'm not hating on somebody for drafting Mac Jones, but like, he seems like when they were trying to, I forget, there's always a quarterback every year where they're like, yeah, we're getting first round buzz from this quarterback. It's like, come on, stop it. He's not going to go in the first. You know what I'm talking about. It's the cliche. Yeah.
No, we're bored. We're bored waiting for this thing, and now we're trying to come up with stuff that's content creation. I mean, crap. Yeah. Half the stuff you hear nowadays is just because of you need something to talk about on news. And so a scout drops something you get to, and also scouts do this all the time. They drop a little crumb to pull you off the trail, so that way it's a little bit like, oh, we can either get a big value pick for this guy, or we could possibly, you know, get some more picks. I mean, it's always these little crumbs that they throw out. That's one for content, and 2, it's to see if anybody's gonna bite on it. I mean, again, I don't know if anyone else has heard the story, but there's the story of Willis McGahee, who was sitting in the draft room. I think it was 2003. I want to say it was, but Drew Rosenhaus is calling him. And he's sitting on the phone with him, and the draft people are just like filming the crap out of it. And everyone's like, who's talking to him? Who's talking to him? Who's talking to him? And Rosenhaus said, pretend to talk to me to think it's a team. And the team was willing to trade up. And there's the Buffalo Bills who traded up to go get Willis McGahee because they knew that they were going to be able to get him in the first round. So it's the same thing. It's all these little smoke screens that we see. It's kind of like how we're seeing these smoke screens of Atlanta going to all these pro days for these quarterbacks. Oh, we really like Trey Lance, or we really like Justin Fields, or we really like, the upside of Zach Wilson if he were to fall. Because here's the thing, we've never done this before, but we're going to say we love quarterback competition. Now you don't. You never had a quarterback competition. It's been Matt Ryan since he got drafted number 3 overall. Stop trying to pretend with us, Terry Fontenot. I love you, Terry. I think Terry was one of the best hires made all offseason. But Terry, come on, don't say that. It's not true. It's okay to say that you're trying to get someone to bite. And if you don't bite, you got to take the best player available. And I think on most people's big board, mine included, Kyle Pitts is the top big player. So at that point, third player, he's number 2 on mine. I'm at 4. Go ahead and build the offense. Arthur Smith is an offensive guy.
I think the only thing that I would be considering over Pitts here, the only person, I don't want to call anybody a thing, but Penny Sewell, because he's my number 1 player in the draft. I have a generational grade on him. I think he's, and people will disagree with me, but I think he's the best prospect since Pace. Like, I really think he's a phenomenal offensive tackle. He's a plug-and-play Pro Bowler. Like, I really believe that. And I have a feeling that the Bengals are going to regret this decision if they pass up on him. We'll get to that. But I'm just saying, like, I think this guy could be legit. And I've been on Forever I Love Atlanta Sports podcast. I went on their show. Obviously, you know where I'm going with that. Falcons fans. One guy was really high on Sewell. Another guy was really high on Pitts. They're all pretty much going to bat for Matt Ryan. I think this decision was made when they restructured Ryan. It is nearly impossible to trade his contract now.
And you can't next year either. Like that, like that's the biggest thing of all that most people don't understand. It's not a 1-year deal where he's sitting the quarterback.
Exactly.
It's a 2-year deal. And Trey Lance fits here if it's a 1-year deal. Like, it's a perfect fit here if it's a 1-year deal.
Exactly.
But it's not. It's a 2.
Yeah.
You can't sit a first rounder as your first pick in a new regime for 2 years. Like, it's not Aaron Rodgers at 24, 25. It's 4. Like, it's 4. You can't do that. But yeah, I'm right now back to the story. Yeah, I'd say back to the Penny Sewell story, though. I could see him going there. I'm a lot lower on Sewell, even though I'm a lot higher on him as a prospect than any of the other offensive linemen we've seen come out. It's just a really, really deep class, and then you opt out, and it somewhat hurts your film a little bit, in my opinion, because other guys got better film. And that's the only way I kind of grade it. I mean, he's number 12 on my big board, but he's the number 1 tackle, and he would have been the number 1 tackle for like the last 3 draft classes. Like, he's that good. But at the same time, are you going to move, Jake Matthews over to the right side? And at that point, are you moving McGarry inside? Or are you moving Lindstrom over? I mean, there's a lot of things.
I think you do. Yeah, if you do grab him, because I think they have one need, and it's guard. If you ask me, they could grab another, and I don't know how much of a need it is, but they could definitely grab another guard for sure. But I like what they've done. When you look at them adding Hennessy and I forget the one guy's name from Boston College, I want to say. I can't even remember his name.
It was Chris Lindstrom a couple years ago.
Yeah, so Lindstrom they got in the first round. They got Hennessy, and I think the third. And then they have – I'm going to pull up the depth chart at some point here. But Willie Wright is the guy that they have a left guard. That's my point, is that I could totally see them being like, you know what, let's just have a great offensive line. You add Sewell, you plug him in, you kick either Jake Matthews, probably would be Caleb McGarry if you ask me, or Jake. Oh, it could be Jake Matthews. He's a little older. You kick him inside at guard. You put Sewell. I think like you're dealing with something there. Then I could see, because hear me out when I say this, Arthur Smith, when you look at him, he's probably thinking, well, he's probably trying to do what they did with Ryan Tannehill with Matt Ryan. Like, he's probably trying to get every ounce of play out of him. And with that said, then all of a sudden you look at the weapons they have, and you're like, man, if they get Sewell, they really have like hardly any holes on that offense at all. And they could focus on getting a running back in the second round. And then, you look at the defense, and their defense, that's really where they need to build. So it's like, there's not really a defensive player you pick here you know, because there's not like there's not an Ed Oliver or anybody like that, defensive lineman that I would take. There's not last year with Brown, the one guy, I always forget the guy's name from San Francisco that they got. Like, there's not. Yeah, Kinlaw. There's not anybody like that interior that, like, I feel like if you could get a guy to pair with Grady Jarrett, that would be awesome. But there's not an elite talent that I would pick that high, like, ever. Like, I really like Levi Onwuzurike, but that's in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, that's a yeah. I mean, it's a second round pick because of the depth at defensive line. I mean, he's a low end second round grade for me. Let's just go with that, and that's being generous because of, I think, the defensive line class is horrible. But let's move on to pick number 5. We spent enough time.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, no, and you and I both have the same pick at 5. We both have Jamar Chase. I kind of got the sense that you disagree with this decision, but it's more like projecting, like what you expect.
Guys, I want to be right. I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to be right when they're picking? Then you get to be like, I got an 80% success rate at picking a thing that doesn't really matter outside of one night of the year, and it doesn't mean anything to my job security or my life, or I don't go into bars and then go, hey, I got a 92% on all my mock drafts, including trades. Like, I mean, that doesn't really happen. But again, let's just think about this. If Joe Burrow is your quarterback and you want him to run the franchise and you want to make him happy, and his happiness is Jamar Chase, I sit him down and I go, listen, we'll get to Chase. We are drafting offensive linemen the rest of the draft for the next 5 years until we get it right, because if we need you to be healthy. Did you see the same picture I did of him sitting on a throne and holding that football, and what was smiling back at us? A freaking scar like yay big down his leg? I mean, at that point, yeah, you do go that. I mean, you got to go offensive line, and you go offensive line until you get it right. But if Chase is the guy, and you believe in Chase, and I believe that his projection is like an Amari Cooper type player, a guy who can be 1,000 yards, quick on the outside, play inside, good route runner, good in contested catches, makes a lot of plays, makes a lot of moves. You can kind of maneuver him around. If that's your guy, that's your guy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But at that point, you tell Burrow, you do not get a say in anyone else, because we got your guy in the round 1 and we're passing on a tackle. That's fine. We are drafting offensive linemen until we cannot breathe. Like, we will have you buried underneath 17 offensive linemen for the rest of your life if you want. You just throw short balls to Jamar Chase every play. We'll do that.
And it's like the situation they're in. You have Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Auden Tate. That's better than at least 10 teams in the league, maybe.
I'd say anywhere between 8 to 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not like a need, It's like that is a position where you go out and you get like a Jalen Darden in the slot. That, to me, like that, the position they're in, you grab Jalen Darden in the middle of this draft. But this pick seems a little rich.
Collins, maybe get Nico Collins to play the outside as your perimeter guy. Like, he's a little bit faster.
That's true. Tyler
like,
Boyd's interchangeable, but yeah.
Like De'Ami Brown, you could probably even make a more justifiable pick for, like, on the outside to be your vertical threat. I mean, like, that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Again, but nothing makes sense in the NFL draft. I mean, let's be honest. It really doesn't.
No, we're gonna see a lot of. I'm sure we'll see trades that just. It happens every year. It's most of the time it's Seattle. Like, let's be real here. They're picking
the first round. It's not them anymore. It can't be. We're
they'll trade it in the first round and they'll pick a fourth round linebacker. It's gonna happen. I don't know. They'll pick a running back probably.
All right.
So 6 we have. You have Jalen Waddle.
I do.
And I'm looking at mine, and I believe I have Jalen. I do. I have Jalen Waddle as well. He's the best receiver in this draft, in my opinion.
I think he is the most upside receiver in this draft, in my opinion. That's what I would say.
That's fair.
I think that when you look at him, I've studied a lot of Alabama tape because of, I'm an Alabama alum. I watch it for fun. Like, that's like my weekend, like, just to be bored when I'm at home. It's just one of those things that I do. I said last year Jalen Waddle was the best of the four. I stood by that all this time. I still like Devonta Smith won the Heisman, but here's the thing. What makes a good wide receiver is not always the stat line. It's about his role with an offense. When you play Jalen Waddle in your team, and it happened this entire season at Alabama when he was healthy, it opened up the offense to connect with Devonta Smith downfield. It allowed Devonta Smith to get those receptions because you were playing so many double coverage. You were playing zone so much against Jalen Waddle. So it opens up your offense and it allows your quote-unquote number one guy to get open. Your number one guy is actually Jalen Waddle because if he's getting double teamed. And you can move him around in a multitude of ways, and you can play him not just in the slot. I've watched him be successful on the outside. My player comp for him is not Tyreek Hill because of nobody's Tyreek Hill. I'm tired of hearing that.
No.
I'm tired of hearing every single time a fast player is there, he's the next Tyreek Hill. I'm tired of hearing that. But he's Tyreek Hill frame, A.J. Brown ability. That's what I put as my comp for him. I like the way you can maneuver him in a route running situation, allow him to be effective after the catch, and be really successful wherever you line him up. That is what I think Miami needs. That is what I think Miami is hoping for. And I think that what you have right now with players in a DeMonte Parker, who's kind of like your big, I would say, your possession receiver. You have your vertical threat in Will Fuller if he can stay healthy. You need that consistent picking up play guy. That was what Jalen Waddle was at Episcopal High School here in Houston, Texas. That's who he was at Alabama and Tuscaloosa. That's what he's going to be in the NFL. You can play him anywhere. I very much think that that's going to be the pick if it is there. I mean, don't get me wrong. If Penny Sewell's there, I think it's a consideration. But I don't see why you can't go Jalen Waddle. He has the most upside in this class, in my opinion.
I think, well, they made a decision earlier today because then they traded away Flowers.
They traded away Eric Flowers.
That was them admitting
that Robert Hunt was going to be moving to guard. So Robert Hunt will be playing guard. Solomon Kinley will be playing guard. And Austin Jackson will be playing one of the two tackles. But keep in mind, at the same time, Tua Tagovailoa is left-handed. So the right tackle is actually the left.
Is the most important.
It's actually the most important. So when you see, because that was the thing, like everyone was like, Jedrick Wills was a right tackle at Alabama. Why are you playing him at the left side? Because of Tua was a left-handed quarterback. So that is your left tackle. Everything is flipped. Yeah. So that's like, so just keep that in mind.
It's like,
if it is it. Yeah.
And that used to be the position. I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, the best tackle was always the right tackle. Just look at, Jackie Slater played right tackle. I mean, it's like all those guys back then played right tackle, and the left tackle was the guy like no one knew.
Keep in mind, back then, it used to be a run-heavy offense, and the right tackle was your lead blocker. So that was why everyone said, oh, if you're a great run blocker, you play right tackle. If you are a great pass blocker, you play left tackle. And then Joe Theismann happened. And because of Lawrence Taylor, the left tackle became the most important position on the offensive line. So I think
you're just teaching guys left and right.
but the biggest thing is that nowadays you need to be good at both, like on either side.
Yeah.
It's no longer left tackle is so much more important than right tackle. It's you need to be good at both because it's become such a pass happy league that when you do run, you got to run a lot. And when you run, you have to run to either side. And I think the pulling guard is actually more important than either tackle, because if you need that pulling guard to be really effective to open up that extra running lane on either the left or the right side.
No, that definitely makes sense. I think my comp for Waddle, I don't have many player comps. I got rid of them because when I was I was just, comparing this guy to this guy, I realized it gets very watered down. So I only do it when I really feel it. So when I watched Jalen Waddle, first thing I thought was Odell Beckham Jr. I felt like he has that explosive ability. He has that superstar ability. Like I really feel like he could be like Odell, as long as he doesn't go to like a Ben McAdoo offense and they know how to actually give him separation and put him in the open field and let him work, run after the catch. He will blow up in the NFL. I have no doubt about it. So I'm very, very high on him.
I'm high on him. I'm not going to go Odell. I mean, they're two very different players, but I get where I get where your head's at. Like again, I said AJ Brown. Their height differentials, like we're talking like 4 inches difference. I mean, like I get it. Like it's the playmaking ability. All right, first trade I have coming up.
I do too.
Yep. I think again, I've spoken to a couple of people. This is where most people have said this is where the trade will be, and it will be probably one of these two teams. So I'll just go ahead and announce it. I have the New England Patriots giving up pick number 15, pick number 96, and pick number 120 to get to number 7 with the Detroit Lions. And I may not have someone different than you, but I have it being Justin Fields.
I have it being Justin Fields as well. And I did the same exact thing. People are starting to wonder if I'm a Patriot apologist now, which is weird because they've knocked my favorite team out of the Super Bowl twice. But I really just want Bill Belichick to get his guy because I'm so tired of hearing how it was only Tom Brady now and Bill Belichick doesn't matter. It's like, slow your roll a little bit. Wait until this guy gets his quarterback and they'll be back in the hunt. So I hope this is the case. Personally, this is where I want Trey Lance to end up. But my number 2 quarterback is Justin Fields. So I love this for the Patriots. I think it makes a lot of sense. I gave up a little bit more, I believe, because I gave up the 46th, the 15th, the 46th, and the 242. So okay. I used the trade chart from Draft Tech.
So you gave up an earlier pick to keep an extra pick, basically.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So I mean, again, they have 2 4th-round picks, so like they'll have one, they won't have the other. Like
no. So you're smart on that. I'm looking at myself as like that's dumb. But
I kept the second. I kept the second. I got rid of the third because it's a late third, and I gave one of my 2. So I think that I love Quinn Miners too. We'll get to him in a minute. Anyways, I think okay. Here's the fun part. Here's the really fun part. Yeah. Since 2000, since Bill Belichick has been the head coach of the New England Patriots. He has had 2 sub 500 seasons. He has missed the playoffs 3 times. He does not lose.
No.
And he's the GM as well. So if he ever were to retire as the head coach, he may stay on as the GM. This is an investment pick. You invested all this offseason money into Johnny Smith, into Hunter Henry, into Kendrick Bourne, into Jalen Mills, into all these other guys.
I've been saying this.
You got to go get your quarterback. I mean, trust me, I could see where they wait outside the top 10 to give up less. But if Justin Fields is here and you can get a good deal done and Brad Holmes wants to move back, go get Justin Fields. He may not be there at 9. He's going to be there at 7. So just go do it.
I think that's who they like. And I think everybody's connected to Mac Jones. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't like Mac Jones.
Here's the thing. I think that he understands, and the good coaches elevate with the times. I mean, like, that's the biggest thing. Good coaches elevate with what we're seeing. Mac Jones, I think, works for a lot of teams, including New England. But I think Mac Jones in that style of play will not be existent in 10 years, which could make, a guy like Mac Jones's career a lot shorter, where a guy like Justin Fields' career could be a lot longer because of that. So you go out and you get that guy, and you go get kind of a hybrid blend of Cam Newton, a guy who can be able to move a lot. High end, like as high end as possible comp for Justin Fields is Dak Prescott. That's like as high as I can get. Like, he is pinnacle best player Dak Prescott. If you get Dak Prescott in this offense, that's exactly what you want. Like, get him with Josh McDaniels, let him learn, let him also learn from Cam Newton. It's a good fit. And the deal is very incentive-based for Cam Newton. So this is one of those times where last season you didn't feel comfortable playing Jarrett Stidham. You might feel comfortable playing Justin Fields over Cam Newton at some point in the season.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think, Justin Fields, he's been at the butt of a lot of, bad press, I would say. I've seen some ridiculous stuff where people are like questioning his character because of who he hangs out with. And I'm like, what is that? But there's always weird stuff out there. And I think Fields is going to end up being a really good quarterback in this league. I think Trey Lance has a chance. Trey Lance, by the way, I forgot to point this out. He is literally the best quarterback prospect I've seen since Luck. Like, I love him. I love Trey Lance.
I know you do. That's tough. That is really tough. I mean,
know how much I love Wentz.
I know.
So
I do. It's still tough. It is. Let's keep this going. Unfortunately, I got to keep this ball rolling because we got to get going through a lot more picks.
oh yeah, no, of course.
Let's go to pick number 8.
So then pick 8, we got Carolina, and you have Sewell going to Carolina. I think that's a good move.
Here's the thing. Everyone's talking about this, and they're like, oh, well, if a quarterback falls to them, maybe they'll take him. Do you know why Sam Darnold didn't work in New York? Because of nobody believed in Sam Darnold. What does drafting a quarterback say? We don't believe in Sam Darnold. Why not instead go ahead and get your left tackle, pair with Taylor Moton, build that offensive line, and let it work? I mean, like that's smart to me. And Scott Fritter. Here's the thing: Scott Fritter is a brand new GM. You want your first pick as a GM to be successful. I think the worst we see a Penei Sewell is like a Jake Matthews, like a guy who's a fringe top 10 tackle, pretty consistent, never really has a problem, gets a second contract, probably plays about 12 years and then retires. Never been all pro, but definitely at least a Pro Bowler. Like that's his floor. Sometimes boring picks are good. This is a boring pick. It's a good pick.
I love this pick, but I am not making this pick for the same team. So I have Penei Sewell going off the board, but I have none other than the Los Angeles Chargers trading up to get him, pair him with Justin Herbert. I have a trade here. So they ended up they traded the 13th and the 47th pick. So they traded a second rounder to go up and get their guy. Some people will say, hey, Darisaw is there. So Darisaw and Slater at this point are there. So one of them could have fallen. I think at this point, if it gets to this point, I think they would actually go up and potentially do this move. I don't have too many trades. This is the only trade I have aside from the Patriots one. So that's how I had it there. And now number 9, we were thinking a little different here with Denver. So you didn't go quarterback. You went with Rashawn Slater. I do like this move. I actually went with Micah Parsons.
Okay, and that's my other guy. That would be the other guy. Okay. Those are the two I think it would have gone between. If you get Mike Munchak as your O-line coach, you call your agent, you call your mother, you call the head coach, you call your Lord and Savior, whoever it is. If it's a bullfrog on a mountain, you do that. You call that because Mike Munchak is going to make you a dang good player. We talk about Garrett Bowles being like a bust within his first year. Mike Munchak comes in, he becomes one of the best offensive tackles in the game, gets an extension, doesn't have to worry about anything else for the rest of his life because Munchak fixed him. They went out, they got Dalton Reisner. Reisner has gotten better at guard. You went out and got Graham Glasgow. He got better at guard. From when he was in Detroit. Lloyd Cushenberry, I still think has the ability to be really good as a center. But the other thing is, if Cushenberry stinks and you still want to play Juwan James, Glasgow and Reisner have snaps at center. And Slater can play all 4 offensive line positions. So if you want to play him at right tackle over Juwan James, play him at right tackle. You want to move Garrett Bowles over to right tackle and play him at left tackle, play him left tackle. You don't believe in Lloyd Cushenberry, move one of those 2 in, plug and play. Mr. Slater, guy is, I consider him like the Incredible Hulk because he wears those glasses and can squat 550 front squat like it's no big deal. Jesus. I mean, seriously, the dude is Bruce Banner just on roids. So I think he's a really talented player. I think if he gets to go be the pick here, there literally is no more excuses for Drew Lock. Like that's Drew Lock's final excuse. If that's the case, then I say go ahead and go get this guy. But again,
I like it. Yeah, so I decided to go with Micah Parsons. I just feel like this is kind of where I could see Vic Fangio going. I actually have Micah Parsons projected as a 3-4 outside linebacker hybrid. So like I think this is where his best fit is because I feel like Fangio knows like he can play linebacker, he can play outside linebacker. I think he's going to have like the fact that he can wear multiple hats to me signals that Fangio will be able to use him all over the field. I just feel like when you have that athleticism, you have Chubb, of course, we have Von Miller coming back. I love Alexander Johnson, by the way. Love him on the defense. Josie Jewell's pretty solid. But you add Micah Parsons and you just continue to build on this defense that, they went out and they added Ronald Darby. They added Kyle Fuller. I mean, this defense, I've been saying it, the Broncos aren't like that far away. If Drew Lock plays solid football, they could be in a wild card race.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, your pick, I think, does the same thing, if you ask me. I almost feel like, in a way, they're in a luxury spot. I know it sounds weird, but it's like they don't have to pick an offensive lineman. He helps a lot, and he's also wears multiple hats. But then on my side, with Micah Parsons, they don't have to pick him either. I think he just helps. It's going to make Vic Fangio's job easier, and he wears multiple hats. So I think, again, it's weird because they weren't amazing last year, and here they are picking in the top 10, but I kind of feel like they're in a luxury spot where they can kind of pick whoever they want.
I think they're in that weird kind of frame to where you could either trade up, trade back, you could either stay put. You're in a really fun spot. But again, my biggest thing is that every single time I've looked at the kind of quarterback that Denver has taken, and again, it's a new GM. It's a brand new GM, George Payton, who worked with Kirk Cousins. My comp for Mac Jones is Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, it makes sense. He's the last quarterback on the board. If you're not sold on Drew Lock, are you sold on Mac Jones?
That's my thing.
Are you sold on Mac Jones? Because I'm not at that point. And at that point, it's a new GM. I just said less than 2 seconds ago, Scott Fritter needs to be a smart first-year GM. He was very smart by giving up picks in 2022 for a guy who maybe is going to be the franchise quarterback with Sam Darnold. George Payton needs to be smart and get a clean pick. I wonder about Micah Parsons because there is the character issue. There is that one little character issue that does come up. The smart pick at that point, to me, it's a boring pick, but it builds your offensive line to where you have Glasgow under contract for 2 more years. You have Bulls under contract for, I think, 5 more years. You have a guy who would be there for 4 more years when you draft quarterback in 2022. And you still have some pieces to where you can work around and you can draft some other guys if you really want to. You have some money in free agency. Slater's boring, but boring and safe sometimes keeps people employed, and it also helps build up rosters. That's the thing with an offensive line. And the biggest call, I've always said this. The best friend of a quarterback is not the weapons on the outside. It's the 5 men up front. The best teams that know how to block are the ones that are successful. That's why you saw Tampa Bay move up 1 spot to guarantee that they were going to get Tristan Wirfs. Because they got the quarterback in Tom Brady. You best believe they're going to go ahead and get their offensive lineman. So is Slayer's the guy? Slayer's the guy.
I love that
Pick
move.
number 10. Let's get going.
So we got Cowboys.
We do.
We both have the same pick. Patrick Surtain.
I want to trade back. I do. Like, I really do if I'm Dallas. But they're not going to.
Dallas needs a corner.
They do, but there's a lot of good corners. Okay. So you've got my big board. You know I'm really high on Greg Newsome. You know I love Greg Newsome. I think that if he was healthy, I'd be putting him actually probably above Surtain because I have J.C. Horn as my number 1 guy. But I think at this pick, it is the cleanest and easiest pick right now. It is easily the cleanest and easiest pick to make right now if he's available. It's Surtain. Because Surtain, the thing is with J.C. Horn, and people don't understand this, and this is why I think that when we talk about how Barmore, like Christian Barmore, is considered to be a Dallas trade back up pick, the reason Dan Quinn's defenses were so successful with the Legion of Boom and with Atlanta when they went to the Super Bowl was not because of just the secondary. It was because of the defensive line. And they played a lot of cover 3. A cover 3 defense is not what you want to play a J.C. Horn in. You want to play a Surtain in that, or you want to play a Greg Newsome in that. So if you're sold, so let's just say Surtain is the pick at like 8 to Carolina. It's too soon to draft Newsome. You trade back. You get Newsome. He played in Pat Fitzgerald's cover 3 defense. That's what you want. And then you get that extra pick to possibly move up with that second round, pair 2 second rounders to go up and get Barmore. So now you get your number 1 cornerback, and you get your Grady Jarrett / Michael Bennett of your new Dan Quinn defense. But if Surtain's there, you don't get a trade offer, you can't move back, and you really love Surtain, go ahead and just get Patrick Surtain. I mean, he's got the cleanest footwork. He's the I think the most versatile of the corners. He's not my favorite corner, but he's the most versatile. Go get your guy. That'd be my.
I agree with you, and that's kind of how I see it. Very disciplined. He's more patient. Like you're going to get into that grabbiness with JC Horn, and we don't. I mean, rookie corners, man, grabby rookie and cornerback. All of that does not go well.
They're also
normally
that go together, which is really bad.
Yeah, so
they're all 3 words that go together. But again, I think if we're talking about the 3, he's the one. I have a trade now, which is really fun.
I know you do. I was surprised. I saw this and I was like, damn. I said Arizona was like this flashy team this offseason. This is a flashy move.
It is, isn't it? So I have them trading their 4th round pick this year, the 1st round pick this year, and their 2nd round pick next year to go up to pick number 11 and go get another weapon for Kyler Murray, Alabama wide receiver Devonta Smith. Here's the deal with this. You get a clean route runner. You get one of the best contested catchers in the game. You get someone who can be, in my opinion, a Marvin Harrison type player. You allow him to be paired with Christian
great
Kirk.
comp.
You allow him to get paired with Christian Kirk, AJ Green, and also DeAndre Hopkins. You want to run a ton of spread offense because that's what Cliff Kingsbury does. Spread means a lot of 4-man sets. You lost your receiving tight end and Dan Arnold. You can run it with 4 receivers. AJ Green, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, and now you get Devonta Smith. This is a prove-it year for Steve Keim. This is a prove-it year for Cliff Kingsbury. I honestly think it's also kind of a prove-it year for Kyler Murray. Not as if he can be that guy. I think everyone knows he can be that guy. But what's going to be his upside? Is he going to get to that next level? You give him as many weapons as possible, you're going to be really hard to say he does not get to that next level. So that new idea, and I've heard from people that again, New York's willing to trade down, and that never happened. So if Dave Gettleman's willing to trade down, it means that there's got to be somebody he really likes, and he already messed up taking one at the 6. He can't do it twice. He's got to take him at like 17. He can't take him there.
Oh man, well. I'm actually selling his news on that. I like your trade. I'm gonna match that with a not trade. I'm gonna have them stay and take Rashawn Slater. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like you said, the versatility. Their offensive line, they have pieces. Obviously, Andrew Thomas is somebody that he's eventually going to get better. One would hope. And I think he was starting to get better after what's his name, Colombo left. But I really like Matt Parrott. So it is kind of hard to make that pick. But the versatility, Will Hernandez, I'm not giving up on, but hasn't been the greatest. And it's been kind of sad.
Keep that in mind. He's also a contract guy.
Exactly. So then they have Nick Gates at center. And then they have Zach Fulton. You're going right where Zach Fulton is. Like, there we go. Plug in there. And on paper, the Giants seem to have a decent looking offensive line if you add Slater.
So I actually think if they stay put here, Elijah Vera Tucker would be the guy because if you can move him, do a little bit of everything.
He's the second best offensive lineman after Sewell for me.
To me, he actually might be my favorite. He's my favorite offensive lineman. He may be.
He's great.
He's great. I literally have 12, 13, 14 on my big board. I think it's Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker, like back to back to back. It'd make a lot of sense because if he can be your Will Hernandez replacement in a contract year, but you can also keep him on a 5-year deal instead of a 4-year deal. So I think that would make sense that they're there. But we got to talk about the pick at number 12. And a lot of people
think another trade.
Not yet. 12 I don't. At 13 I do.
Oh, okay. All right.
At 12, this is the easiest pick. I'm running to the podium. There's not a receiver here that I would take. To me, it's JC Horn. I mean, you got to get a physical corner. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people kind of forget. Jonathan Gannon, the new defensive coordinator, got his start learning under one coach. The coach's name is good old Mike Zimmer. What does Mike Zimmer love to draft more than any other position?
Oh, man.
When you look at
that
what
makes sense. Checks out. That's a good one.
And I think when you look at with the scheme of what Gannon's going to run, having that physical press corner like JC Horn and having that kind of attitude that he has is going to work really well in Philly. You got to be a tough SOB to play in Philly in front of the Link fans. I don't know how many players can do it. I know JC Horn can. He has an attitude.
I don't know if Jalen Reagor can. They're going after him like crazy.
I don't either.
See that?
And again, that's the biggest thing is that if he can't, we just saw Carson Wentz ask for a trade. I have my comp being Xavier Howard for him, but he's got a mouth of Richard Sherman. He is the mouth of Richard Sherman, plain and simple. He's going to say, "Don't ever talk to me." To a receiver, he's going to do Micah Crabtree. That's what he would do.
Yeah, I agree. And, there's a lot of people actually comparing him to Jalen Ramsey. I don't think he's quite the talent, but I get the size, speed. I get that comparison. I think people forget Jalen Ramsey's a guy no doubt was going in the top 5. There's not a cornerback in this draft that's no doubt going in the top 5. That's the difference.
No, there's not. Now, who do you have though at 12?
I have the same.
Okay.
I think in my scenario, keep in mind, Devonta Smith is still there. So I think they will consider that. But I just think, like you said, I think they're going to want a corner. I didn't even know about the defensive, the defensive coordinator bit that you threw in there.
I cover the NFL like crazy, but I do cover the drafts because I want to be able to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. Jonathan Gannon grew up playing in Mike Zimmer, playing in the Mike Zimmer scheme. Zimmer drafts corners like no other, and he's done it for a while. Dude, it makes.
And you come on here and like people will say that I do that, right? I'll have random stuff I bring up, and then you come on here and you dwarf me. So I'm like, oh, come on.
I know.
I love it. The preparation is unmatched. I love it. So 13.
I do. I did it.
You have another trade. You do.
I did it. And I did it. The Chicago Bears have traded the first round pick in 2021, the first round pick in 2022, and pick number 83 to the Los Angeles Chargers to select McCorkle Jones, quarterback of Alabama. Listen, here's the reality of it. They got to get a quarterback of the future. They realized that at some point somebody's going to trade up. Somebody's going to be in play for Mac Jones. It's crazy to think, but here's the deal. If Ryan Pace does not work this year, you can fire him. You can fire Nagy. You can get a brand new front office. You can do exactly what you did, what you tried to do with Mitchell Trubisky. The difference is you now know what you have. You now know what you need. And you know what type of guy that you're going to go after. So a guy like Mike LaFleur, if he really works well with Zach Wilson, could be a name on the rise to come in and be a pick as the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. Eric Bieniemy is another name that we talk about. Had a lot of success with Patrick Mahomes. Maybe you go ahead and see what he can do with the pocket passer because he's also worked as a quarterback coach and as an assistant with Alex Smith. So we know he's worked with that kind of player. Mike McDaniel is going to be the OC with Jimmy Garoppolo. If Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a player who does, who is a kind of pocket passing guy, you never know. You really don't know. Guy looks related to Les Snead. Oh, that's really pleasure. I really want my beard to grow out. But anyways, I think the Chargers are in a good spot because the Chargers still have, I think, 3 offensive linemen they like on the board. They also could go after a guy like Trayvon Merrick to go pair with their defense and their secondary. Ooh. I think that they could go ahead and they can get a cornerback. There's a lot of corners that are going to be available. So they have some flexibility and they can go get a guy and some extra picks. So I actually think that this is a very good move. I think Chicago needs to go take that risk. I have them trading back. But you also had a trade. This is where you have Carolina going.
Yes. So I had the trade, that Carolina went all the way down here, and I'm going to not trade back again because Carolina is right in the driver's seat to pick my number 2 offensive tackle in this draft, Christian Darrisaw. I think right off the cuff, I know there's people that are like, well, he's a second rounder. I didn't like Greg Little, like literally at all in that draft at all.
No,
I did not like that pick.
Not a lot of people.
And so for me, Darius is a no-brainer. The reason it was so hard for me to break the tie between him and Slater, I just felt like he was more of a tackle. So I actually feel like the versatility in a sense hurt him on my tackle board. And is that fair? Maybe, maybe not. But it hurt Slater.
It's justifiable. Let's go with that. It's justifiable.
Because if I want to tackle, I'm getting a tackle out of Darius. I don't have any questions about that. So, like you said earlier with Sam Darnold, we're going out, we're going to get him a left tackle, and we're going to do that in Darius.
Yeah. The one thing I will say real fast about Darius before I go any further, he is the highest graded player by Pro Football Focus as both a run tackle and a pass protection tackle. So he has the highest grade when it comes to both combined. When you look at that versatility and what you have with a guy like Christian McCaffrey coming back from injury, you probably want to go to a guy like that. So that is something that I do agree with. All right, pick number 14. Did you do a trade or are you staying put?
All right. So I've been mocking this guy here for I think a decade. I got Elijah Vera Tucker with the Minnesota Vikings, and so did you.
I was just saying, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, and we both had him. Here's the reality of it. You drafted Ezra Cleveland last year to be your left tackle of the future. I think you have to give it a shot. So at that point, it opens up left guard. And that's where I think Elijah Vera Tucker is good. Here's a fun stat. He has played the most consistent snaps on the offensive line in USC since arriving in Southern California, and he's played at least 5 games at each position. So he's played 5 games he's played 10 games at right guard, I think, 8 games at left guard, and 7 games at left tackle. So he might be the most versatile piece because we've seen him on film do all of this. I very much like Elijah Vera Tucker as a guard. Can he play tackle? Yes, I think he could in a pinch. Do I think he can play left tackle? No, I do not. Do I think when you look at what Mike Zimmer's offense needs, it is a guard more than a tackle? I think you got Ezra Cleveland for that reason last season to be the tackle of the future. Go ahead and move him outside. It's a plug-and-play Elijah Vera Tucker. I know they need pass rushing help. There's enough pass rush with guys like Gregory Rousseau, Quincy Roche kind of falling down the board. Guys like Peyton Turner, Jordan Smith, the guy from UAB. All these guys I think could be available when you're picking next to the 3rd round. So that's the thing, is you got to remember that you're not going to get these guys in the 2nd round, so you got to get them in the 3rd round. If you feel comfortable with this pass rushing class, go ahead and go get your offensive lineman, Elijah Vera Tucker, easily the pick.
Totally agree with you. And I don't really have much to add because you really covered everything.
So
pick 15.
I had a trade.
So I did too.
Okay. Who was yours?
Did we have the same trade? Because it was the Lions.
We had New England and Detroit. Yeah.
So you have Micah Parsons here, and I have Devonta Smith.
Okay. So at this point, there's not a receiver on the board. If there was, I would get. At this point, go ahead and get your Demario Davis linebacker of that room for the new defense coordinator, Aaron Glenn. I'm really high on Aaron Glenn. I thought that he did a fabulous job as the defensive back coach in New Orleans. And I very much like Dan Campbell. And he talks about, we want to bite your kneecaps. Okay, well, this is a guy who's going to bite your kneecaps. But at the same time, he's going to play that Sam backer role. He's not going to be your middle backer. He's going to be your Sam backer, and he's going to be your blitzer. He's going to be a guy who makes a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage, thumper against the run, can play in zone coverage, which when you look at what New Orleans did, they played more zone under Dennis Allen than they did man. And I think that he can be really, really, really effective as a 3-down player. If anyone wants to watch a near flawless game of what linebacker looks like, go watch the 2019 Cotton Bowl against Memphis, because of when you see what Micah Parsons did in that game. 14 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, caused an interception, 2 sacks. You don't get much better than that. Like, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about a guy like Micah Parsons. So that's why I think at that point, Micah Parsons is the perfect fit. A guy comparing to is LeVar Arrington when he was coming out. This was a guy who was going to be a really good pass rusher, a guy who was going to be
a good one.
Talented as a thumper, a good run stopper, but could play a little bit in coverage. If you play him in zone, I think he's going to be pretty good.
I definitely like the pick there. I picked Parsons earlier because I think, I really like that fit, but then this is probably, I have him falling if he doesn't go with Denver. I think he will fall to this spot. So I think he'll be available. I have them going out and getting one of the best route runners in this draft, a guy that can instantly help Jared Goff out. I know some people are just not sold. Keep in mind, Mac Jones is available. So there's some people that would have Mac Jones going here for me. And I don't have Mac Jones going that high, if you remember from what I was saying. So I think they're sticking with Jared Goff. They didn't get a backup quarterback to compete with him. They got a Tim Boyle, who's a backup quarterback. So, for me, you have, Rashad Perriman can stretch the field. You have Tyrell Williams, a bigger receiver that can stretch the field. And you have Khalif Raymond, who's going to help you in special teams and also be in the slot. But he's probably not going to start. And the reason is because they're going to add Devonta Smith, who can really be a game changer, can really help out immediately. I think he's going to translate very well to the next level. You said Marvin Harrison. That was a huge comparison. I think that's a great comparison. No one has said that. Everybody just likes to say, well, he's got the BMI of Marquise Brown. So Marquise Brown, he's nothing like Marquise Brown.
No.
To me, I think he's a lot better than Marquise Brown. So I think, he's an elite receiving prospect in my opinion. And I think the Lions at 15, you trade down, you get New England's second-round pick, and then you end up with Devonta Smith. No one will be complaining in Detroit. Nobody.
The thing is that this is such a deep class at wide receiver.
Yes,
I don't
true.
worry about them taking a wide receiver or two in rounds 2, 3, and now they got that extra third-round pick. You can probably get 2 wide receivers. You can still get Jared Goff a lot of weapons, a De'Ami Brown, a Terrace Marshall Jr., a Rondale Moore. You can get these guys at your first pick, and if you're in your situation where you trade away pick 46, you can maybe get a guy in the second. So I don't think you can get that same caliber linebacker unless it's a guy like Jabril Cox, or for you probably Baron Browning or whoever you have a little bit higher at 46. Where you can get this with Micah Parsons. But pick 16, you have Arizona still picking where they are.
Yes.
I don't. I've heard that it's between Elijah Vera Tucker, Devonta Smith, and this guy at 11. This is my number 1 pass rusher. And
Same.
The other 2 are off the board. So with the 16th pick for me, the New York Giants trade back and they get Jalen Phillips from Miami. This is a guy who I think can be a game changer as a pass rusher, and that's exactly what they need. They need the pass rushing type player, especially for Patrick Graham's defense, who was coming on very strong towards the end of the season. And when you look at what he did towards the end of the season, 11.5 tackles for losses and 6.5 sacks in his final 4 games with the Miami Hurricanes. Guy was a monster. Guy did a fabulous job. There's a lot he needs to work on still. He's not a finished product, but I do think of what I'm looking at pass rushers, Jalen Phillips at this range or Azeez Ojulari at this range makes a lot of sense for New York. And I think Phillips is a great pick here.
Oh, I do too. That defense was already really good. People laughed when Sean McVay said this is the hardest defense I've had to game plan, with. And I just think you add, like you said, the best pass rusher in this draft. I totally agree with you. I think Jalen Phillips, I want to say Brett Coleman. I think it was Brett Coleman. He put out a video that said he's like a combination of both JJ Watt and TJ Watt. I literally saw that on film. So when I saw that video come up on my feed, I was like, that was kind of the vibes I was getting, because he can actually be the power rusher that is JJ Watt in a sense, but he also has that speed, and we saw that as pro day. The guy can fly. He's got explosiveness, and he's got bend, most importantly. Definitely think he projects well. For me, I have Arizona taking Caleb Farley. This is a tough one because I know Farley's probably going to fall, maybe even a little bit further than this, but this is a guy I really like, one of the better corners in the draft. He ended up opting out of the draft last year. Everyone thought he was going to come out. He decided to stay. Unfortunately, that might actually hurt him because he is falling because of that back issue, I believe it is, which that is entirely reasonable. I'd like to point out. I don't mess with back issues, but I think Byron Murphy, you have him there. They added Malcolm Butler, but to me, instantly, if he stays healthy, Caleb Farley's already the best corner on that team.
Yeah, I agree. And here's my biggest thing is that if you stay put, you go get a corner. I do. I think that you got to get a corner. I just go Greg Newsome. Like, I would just go Greg Newsome. It's not probably going to work as much as I probably like, but I think Greg Newsome is a better cornerback than Caleb Farley in grade. And both at this point are injured prone, but there's more film currently on Greg Newsome than there is on Caleb Farley because Caleb Farley opted out and Greg Newsome didn't. So that's why I would go in that direction if it is that. My player comp, though, for Jalen Phillips is a guy that New York Giants fans probably would know very well. It's Jason Pierre-Paul. I think he's a very, very talented Jason Pierre-Paul-like player. That's what I would say.
You're just throwing out these fire comps. We have the same pick for the Raiders at 17, and I feel like everybody's now talking about it. Tevin Jenkins, what do you think?
So here's the thing. It's weird because Tevin Jenkins is not higher on my big board than the guy.
No.
Christian Darius is still my board. But you lose. Okay, here's the thing. You lose Rodney Hudson, and you lose Trent Brown, and you lose Gabe Jackson. I think it's easier to replace Rodney Hudson with a Creed Humphrey in like round 2 than it is to replace a Trent Brown or a Gabe Jackson in round 1. So at that point, Jenkins, you can play him at guard if you want because he has a little bit smaller arms. I think he's got like 31-inch arms. So a lot of people are wary that he's not going to be able to play the tackle position very well. But I think his footwork is great. I think he's a fantastic overall mauler. And the biggest thing of all, I think enough people aren't understanding. You went out and you got a secondary runner in Kenyon Drake to add an extra element to the run game with Josh Jacobs. What position did Mr. Tevin Jenkins play in college? Was he a left tackle or was he a right tackle?
Tevin Jenkins?
Yeah, Tevin Jenkins.
He's a right tackle.
He's a right tackle.
Yeah.
And what did he do in 2019?
I don't know why I totally just like, what was that?
What did he do in 2019? He opened running lanes.
What did he do in 2019?
He opened running lanes. And he opened many running lanes to set an NCAA record for Mr. Chuba Hubbard, the guy who is now going to be a superstar for, I think, the San Francisco 49ers when they select him in the 5th round.
Okay,
but
all right.
you have 2 running backs. You're trying to take pressure off of the passing game in Derek Carr. You're trying to add an extra element to the game. Tevin Jenkins can do it at the guard position. He can do it at the tackle position. That's why I think that you play him over Christian Darius, even though Darius has a higher run grade. So Tevin Jenkins is the pick at number 17 for me.
So then at number 18, we both had pass rushers, but we had different pass rushers. You went with Azeez Ojulari, and I went with Jalen Phillips, who was somehow still there.
Either one works. I think that they're both very similar. The way that I look at this is he reminds me so much of Jerry Hughes for the Buffalo Bills and what he does. And you play at Jerry Hughes all the time and what Sean McDermott likes to run in his dollar defense, in his nickel, in his nickel-based defense a lot. So you want to go get that guy who can be a good pass rusher. Hughes is kind of coming down off of his height, but he still is a very valuable player. I think Brian Flores is going to try and get a guy like this. I think Azeez Ojulari makes sense. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if Darius is the pick because I did this mock before Eric Flowers was traded and the news of Robert Hunt being moved into guard. So if Darius is here, I could see it because then what you could do is you could make a valid argument that him or Austin Jackson could be interchangeable at the left and right tackle position, just literally based off of scheme fit alone. So I could see it, but I still think as of right now, it's going to be between an edge or it's going to be between a tackle. I think you can still get a good tackle at that 36 pick if you really wanted. I'm still not sold on a guy like Gregory Rousseau being that high. And I'm not sure he's there when you're picking again at pick, I think it's 48 or 49. So at that point, I think you got to go with a guy like Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you, and that's probably one of the avenues I would have gone if Jalen Phillips wasn't there. But he falls there, and I think it's a good pick for Miami. I'm not gonna get too much into it because we already talked about Jalen Phillips in depth. So we'll move on to Washington here, and you and I have looks like we have linebackers. We have the same linebacker. We have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah
My
for
favorite player in the draft,
Washington. I love him. Did you see him singing yesterday by the Beatles?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
It was bad, but I loved it. I loved it.
I loved it. More importantly, I love Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah because the guy can play a multitude of positions. You can play the big nickel, you can play him at safety, you can play him in the box, you can play him as your cover linebacker. He really can do a little bit of everything. And when you get that in Jack Del Rio's defense, I think enough people don't understand that this is not going to be the very first time in the era of Ron Rivera that he's worked with a player of this caliber. Before any of these Isaiah Simmons and the Jeremy Chins and the Deion Buchanans came in with the money backers and the hybrid players, Shaq Thompson was the first of them.
Yes.
Shaq Thompson was a safety who played a lot in the box at Washington. And when you have that, that's exactly what you're looking for.
Washington loves those guys. I mean, they have all these like positionless players. You notice that? There's all these guys that need to transfer. I mean, even going back to Corey Littleton, who was a UDFA for the Rams. Like he was a pass rusher, but like they didn't have him at a specific position. Yeah, I know people will be surprised that Washington didn't go Mac Jones on my board. He was off the board for you. For me, I have Chicago taking Mac Jones at 20. So they didn't have to move up. This is the alternate reality, Cole, where they don't have to move up and they get Mac Jones. And then you had the Chargers getting Christian Darrisaw via trade. So essentially, with that being said, Mac Jones, the reason I have Chicago going with Mac Jones, I mean, pretty much like you said, we have Mac Jones going in the same location. We just have it different ways. I think they absolutely need a quarterback. I'm not a fan of Andy Dalton. I know he's well respected around the league. When Steve Weiss came on here, he definitely sounded like he respected him enough to not like dog him or anything like that, which I totally understand. But I don't like Nick Foles or Andy Dalton as a starting quarterback at this point.
And neither's good. Neither's good. I do have Christian Darrisaw here. And the biggest thing is, imagine you being Tom Telesco, getting this guy that most people are mocking at 13 and getting an extra first-round pick for him and an extra third-round pick for him. I mean, this is a guy that, I very much like him. I think at worst, he's a right tackle. I think at best, he's an all-pro left tackle. But the coolest thing about him is he reminds me a lot of David Bakhtiari. He's really, really good at playing the run, and he does a good job opening up running lanes. He's the highest graded run tackle in the offensive class for Pro Football Focus, but he also graded out as a 91.2 in pass protection sets. So the guy is very versatile, but I think the biggest thing is that we look at the level of competition, and we also are kind of going off of what we saw in 2019 with that upside of guys like Slater, guys like Sewell. That's why they're a little bit higher. But if somehow Tom Telesco gets this trade done and moves down and still gets Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler and whoever else I think they're going to draft a running back at some point in this draft, that tackle with Matt Filer, with Corey Linsley, with Brian Bulaga, with all these moves that they've made to protect a young franchise quarterback, I think enough people are going to have to get off Tom Telesco's back about him being an average GM, because the smart GMs get the rookie quarterback and then build the crap around them. And that's exactly what he does in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, we had different because, you had them trading down, getting picks, and getting an offensive tackle, top one, and I had them going out and just going all out for their top offensive tackle. I think either way, Bengals fans would be annoyed. They'd be looking at Herbert like, are you kidding me right now? And he didn't even have an injury, and they're going out and giving him all these guys. And that wouldn't go well. Pick 21. So we both have tackles here, but they're different. So you have very athletic Samuel Cosmi from Texas, really, really good pick. But I have a guy higher on my board, and I won't be surprised if it's Cosme, but I also kind of feel like they also like Dylan Ray-Dunes, so that's where I went with that. I'm like,
So,
I like them
okay.
both, though.
Okay, so here, I'll give you this. I will give you this. If they trade down, and I do think, because it's Chris Ballard, he will trade down.
Yeah,
He
I
will
love
try
Chris
to trade
Ballard.
down. I couldn't find a player that was willing to take here because if I think it's Jalen Phillips, Azeez Ojulari, or Alex Leatherwood, and it's too soon. I did my trade board where like I went through the trade value. I just couldn't find it. So Cosme was the guy. I think if they trade down, Ratings is the guy. I would not be shocked on that. Him or Alex Leatherwood would make a lot of sense. But I think just right here, Sam Cosme, athletic guy, did a fantastic job this past season blocking for Sam Ehlinger. Only allowed 1 sack this year, allowed 0 sacks last year. He picked up the pieces where Connor Williams left. I think that this is a guy who has that athletic build of what you want in a tackle. I'm trying to think of my player comp for him. He graded out with, he was a second-round grade, I know that, but he still is pretty high up there. Yeah, I said Ezra Cleveland, actually. I said Ezra Cleveland was my player comp for him. So I think that these athletic guys are going to start seeing a little bit more reps, and I think you're going to need the more athletic guy to be playing on the left side than you do on the right side.
No, I think that was a really good explanation. Ray-Dunes I love in the run game, and I feel like the Colts are going to want to run the football a lot. They have an amazing running back.
They have 2. They kept Marlon Mack. Like that was to me that was
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was surprised by that, especially the fact they have Naeem Hines and they have the other guy. I always forget his name. No, the other guy.
Jonathan Taylor?
No. He's Jordan Wilkins. So they have like a bunch of guys. Wilkins. They have Naeem Hines. And,
they have like
so. But I think you're right. And my friend Evan, huge Colts fan. Let's put it this way: he's watching the draft, hoping they trade down. So like he'll be upset if they make a pick. So that's kind of I think a lot of Colts fans right now. I get it.
That's the Chris Ballard way. Like that's the Chris Ballard way. Trade down. At some point. At 1:30 in the morning when you're doing this stuff and you're tired and ready to call it a night, you get just like, nobody's trading, nobody's offering me anything.
We're just gonna take Cosme here. I'm over it.
I'm over it. That was basically this.
And then now Tennessee here, you have Caleb Farley. I love that fit, by the way. He didn't fall to but I love the fit. I know where you were going with that. I have your guy Greg Newsome going there though.
Yeah, to me, this is an interchangeable between the next two. I think that this is where these two kind of fall if they get past Arizona. Caleb, the biggest thing is that you got to realize that, one, Caleb Farley's already seen what Trevor Lawrence can do. Like, Caleb Farley's seen in the ACC what he can do.
That's a great point.
And when you have them in the same division, you know what you're going to be expecting. You know what you're going to be expecting with the double pump. You know what you're going to be expecting with him, trying to reach his receiver down the field. You kind of get that feeling. I also like what he brings to a Tennessee defense a little bit more than Newsome in this sense. And I do think he has a lot of upside if he can stay healthy. But the biggest thing of all is that last season, the Tennessee Titans were the worst team at stopping offenses on third down. And it wasn't just third and short. It was third and anything. They still were the worst at any single level of the field. 3rd and 1, 3rd and 13, they were the worst at stopping teams on third down. They allowed over a 56% conversion rating. You got to be able to go out and get a number 1 cornerback. I think with the loss of Adoree Jackson, it becomes a much more valuable need. Again, I like the wide receiver class. There's some wide receivers you can get in round 2. Caleb Farley is a big upside guy. Caleb Farley makes a lot of sense.
So then I had Greg Newsome, and I'll let you. That's your guy. I'll let you go into him because you have him next going to the Jets. And I have Najee Harris. I feel like everyone has just put Najee Harris with the Steelers, and you included. And it's like, who's to say the Jets don't just be like, you know what? I want the best running back in the draft.
I feel like they're going to go Travis Etienne with 34 if he's available. Because why not? I mean, at that point, it makes a lot of sense. I think if you trade back up and he doesn't make it to Pittsburgh, if he goes past Pittsburgh, then maybe you trade back up and go get Najee Harris. But the biggest thing involved is that Greg Newsome, this guy who allowed 12 receptions all season. 12 receptions all season for less than 100 yards and gave up 1 touchdown in coverage. If you have that, any other draft class, we're talking about him as the number 1 cornerback. We are talking about him right up there with everyone else. The biggest thing is the medical issues. He's missed up to 17 games since coming into Northwestern, but the guy's a ball player. The guy can do a lot. And let's be real. One of the biggest reasons that San Francisco was successful was when they added Richard Sherman. And when Richard Sherman got really adjusted to the Robert Saleh defense. Because when he got adjusted, Ahkello Witherspoon got adjusted. And when Ahkello Witherspoon got adjusted, K'Waun Williams got adjusted into the slot. You need that number 1 cornerback. And I think that even though they could still go out and they can get a nickel player, if you want to go re-sign Brian Poole, you can go re-sign Brian Poole. I think they should immediately too.
He's awesome.
I mean, that's what you need to do. If you can do all that, go get yourself your number 1 cornerback. My comp for him is Darius Slay. I think he reminds me so much of what Slay does in coverage. You need a guy like this. This is exactly the type of player you want. I think he fits right there. I'm not going to waste my time with pick number 24. You go ahead and explain Najee Harris because of, I'm a Bama guy. I know what Najee Harris is. So you go ahead and explain number 23.
I mean,
I'll just say, yes, he works at 24 too. There we go.
Yeah, Najee Harris is just an absolute monster. I think he's a pretty underrated pass catcher as well. And I think that's the thing is that the Steelers get him. They're not looking, this to me, the fact that they're even interested in him, which I mean, you should be, he's great. But the fact that they're interested tells me we tried the James Conner, Benny Snell train, and it's not working. We want to go back to what was working. That was Le'Veon Bell, having that guy that can catch passes out of the backfield, literally take over as another element on the field, be like a Todd Gurley, a Zeke Elliott, in their prime, before, the injuries and whatnot, like guys that can really take over. When you have Ben Roethlisberger who's getting older, you want help. And they had the worst running game, I think, since like the 40s or whatever. It was like one of the worst running games since like the 40s. Like it's bad.
They have not ranked above 25th since Le'Veon Bell left in running. That's
a great stat.
Yeah, they've been last year they finished 32nd in rushing. The year before that they finished 29th. The year before that they finished 27th in attempts, 25th, 28th, and I think 32nd in rushing attempts. Here's the best thing of all about Najee Harris, and I'll leave it on this. There was a player that you know very, 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 very well who became very popular because he was very much used in the passing game, and that's my player comp for him. Do you remember his name?
I mean, are you talking about a guy that I've already talked about?
No, I'm talking about a guy that you grew up probably rooting for as a Rams fan.
Oh, Marshall Faulk?
No, Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson, because, I was like, why would you comp it Marshall Faulk? No. That makes a lot of sense. Although, one thing I'll say, biggest issue with Jackson, dude would dance in the backfield all day. I feel like Najee sees a hole and he hits it.
So it's the same thing in a different way. Steven Jackson dances in the backfield. Najee's acrobatic. Najee does all these acrobatic moves that allows him to be like this big old freak, and that's the new dance in the backfield. I'm gonna hop over a player instead of just trying to run through him. I'm gonna go hurdle a kid. Anyway, that's the difference. Instead of dancing in the backfield, making players miss and fall back in the line of scrimmage, you're making players hop over them, and then what's gonna happen is you're gonna hop over one too many times, and then you're gonna tear your ACL. That's my only favorite.
I know.
That's my favorite.
Don't remind me of Gurley. Anyway, we'll move on. So my pick was Creed Humphrey, and I think this is a little bit of a reach. I love Creed Humphrey. You know what? I won't say that. Creed Humphrey is a first-round talent, in my opinion, but I don't know if necessarily in this scenario, if it makes a lot of sense. I could see Pittsburgh doing this. This is Ben's arguably his last year. You go out, you get a guy, like, you never want to start a rookie center, but like, if you're going to start a rookie center, start a guy that like has played a lot of games at a high level, at a big program. The last thing I'm doing is putting Miners there. I know Miners is good, okay, but he's coming from D3. He didn't really play center, although he looked good at the Senior Bowl, but it's like, that's the last thing I'm doing is I'm putting him right in front of Big Ben. I'm going to put a guy like Creed Humphrey who can replace Pouncey, and just that way, long term, this guy's going to be one of the best centers in the league if he stays healthy. Really big fan of Creed Humphrey. He's going to help big time in the run game, which is non-existent right now. But the reason I don't have them going running back here, well, mainly because Najee went 23, is because I feel like this is a good running back class. I know a lot of people, the PFF just said that it was the worst. I don't think so. I really don't.
Okay, so my biggest thing with it, and I agree with you on this one, I like Javonte Harris a lot. I very much like Javonte Williams a lot. I think he's a very talented running back. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think that there's a cutoff with your next bit, and it's your top three, and really to me it's top two. It's Javonte Williams, it's Najee Harris, and then it's your secondary runners that in a couple years maybe can be your lead backs, or maybe your breakout Antonio Gibson type players, and that's Kenny Gainwell, that's Travis Etienne, that's Michael Carter, and then after that, it's role players. You're going to get a third down running back. You're going to get a pass catching running back. You're going to get a blocking running back, and they're one player. That's what they do. That's it. So in a way, it's not a bad class, but they're role players after that. And that's where I have the problem with the class overall.
Well, I think, like, for instance, like you have a guy like Puka Williams, I've ranked pretty high, but he's more of like a gadget player, right? He wouldn't make sense after grabbing. I agree with you, but he wouldn't make sense to the Steelers after grabbing Anthony McFarland and then getting the OC from Maryland. So Anthony McFarland will have a role here. So you want to get a bigger back to complement Anthony McFarland. And so I think, to me, a guy like Trey Sermon is the best fit value-wise, because you need to shore up that offensive line. Defense is great. It's one of the best defenses in football, right? But you have to shore up that offensive line. It's horrible right now. It's bleeding. And so you go out, you get, guys like Ray Dunes, Humphrey, Cosme, you name it, right? You fill that up. And then the third or fourth round, you squeeze in Sermon, who had one of the best 10-yard splits of anybody at his pro day. He's extremely explosive. I say he's Todd Gurley in college, the first 25 yards of his run. The one thing he does not have is long speed, and that is actually what's keeping him from being one of the top backs for everybody. But for me, I don't really care. I look at him. He's my running back 3. I absolutely love Trey Sermon. Ohio State would have been nowhere without him at the end of the year. He came on at the right time. So
he did.
That's kind of my thought with the Steelers.
I like him. If they don't go Najee first round, I'd maybe go Michael Carter in the third. I think that wouldn't be a terrible one. But again, at the same time, I feel like Sermon's a better fit overall. If you go center, I think at this point it would be Creed Humphrey. It wouldn't be Landon Dickerson because of you. And I like Landon Dickerson. I think Landon Dickerson's actually a better player overall. But Landon Dickerson for the last 3 years has had season-ending injuries.
It's so sad.
Add that in. Like talent-wise, he's a first-round talent.
Absolutely.
But ending injuries every single season is not gonna get you a first-round, pick. That's just not gonna happen. But we got pick number 25. Yeah. I have a fun one that I don't think a lot of other people are going to have. Because I don't think you can ever have too many pass rushers. And one's just sitting there.
Jeff Fisher.
You can't. You really can't.
I know.
So I got Kwity Paye going to Jacksonville. I think that with this system, you can play him as, a kind of a mixed player. I think Josh Allen also you can play as kind of a mixed player. You can have him probably be one of your kind of standing 9 techniques if you want to play a bit more of a heavy pass rush to where you play Paye, where you play Caleb on Chase on, and you have Allen kind of just be maybe a outside linebacker type blitzer. So you can play all 3 on the field at the same time. And I think when you're looking at value here, Kwity Paye makes a lot of sense value-wise at this pick.
That definitely makes sense. And I feel like they're going to be going pass rusher at some point in this draft. I think they could use another one. They did bring back a guy that I like, Dwayne Smoot, really good in the run game. But I have them going, I don't love this pick, but I kind of see them doing it. I feel like the more and more I listen to them, it sounds like they're going to go trenches and they're going to go defensive line. And so I have Christian Barmore here. He is not my number 1 defensive lineman. I have Levi as my number 1, but I think he's number 2, of course. I mean, he's really good. It's just a really bad defensive line class. And so it just seems weird to put an interior defensive lineman in the first round in this class, but I mean, I could see them going into your defensive line. I don't love guys like Taven Bryan. I don't think they've really, amounted to what they've expected. And I just kind of feel like that's the direction they're going. And everything from the defensive line coach, I saw an interview with him or whatever. Doesn't he have some connection to Alabama? I thought he did.
Yeah, Josh Tutoipe used to be the defense coordinator at Alabama. So it makes sense. Like, yeah, it does make sense.
So that's why I was thinking, and yeah.
It makes sense. We'll just go right into this because it's my next pick too.
There you go.
Christian Barmore needs to be the pick. I mean, at that point, it's a slam dunk. I'm not going to go that much more into detail. It's kind of very similar. I will say that Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns won the offseason, in my opinion. And they are
loaded.
They won it because of your two players. Because of Troy Hill
and
John Johnson. And I think that they could go cornerback here if they don't believe in Greedy Williams, but I don't have a cornerback worth taking. I think Asante Samuel at this pick is a little too rich. I think a guy like Joseph and Tyson Campbell are a little too rich. I think a guy like Ifeatu Melifonwu makes a lot more sense in their second round pick. So I can't go there. So at the next point, I got to go add a pass rush, bull rushing defensive lineman. Barmore's the best in the class, in my opinion. Andrew Berry continues to knock it out of the park, though, for this defense.
So I actually have a pass rusher as well. I think the Browns have one of the best rosters on paper that you possibly have. I mean, they really don't have many holes. I mean, think about getting Wyatt Teller from Buffalo. Like, that was like what he ended up becoming a Pro Bowler. Like, they've done stuff like that. And like you said, I mean, Berry's just knocked out of the park. So here, I just wrestle with the idea of potentially getting a linebacker or getting a pass rusher. I decided to go pass rusher here. They have Myles Garrett, and then they have, they added Jadeveon Clowney, to Karis McKinley as well. We'll see where that goes. I think by adding Clowney, it gives you an opportunity to add a player who I think is a little raw. Okay, he's not the highest on my board, but he tested out of this world, and that is Jason Owe. I think Jason Owe is that's the perfect fit for him to take over for a Jadeveon Clowney, like when he's out, right? So Clowney goes. You don't like him?
I'm just gonna be honest with you real fast. My comp for him is Jadeveon Clowney. He is.
Are you kidding me?
He's Jadeveon Clowney. Like I got an argument earlier today with somebody, and they were like, "Why would you like if the Cleveland Browns got Jason Owe? Because you already got Jadeveon Clowney. He's Jadeveon Clowney." That's what I said. I mean, so yeah, it works. When he's out and Jadeveon Clowney, you don't have him anymore. You get Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah,
it works.
So you like the pick?
When Jadeveon Clowney missed his time and you wanted Jadeveon Clowney, yeah. I mean, I like it.
Man, that's
I'll let you finish, but he's Jadeveon Clowney 2.0.
No, I actually see that now that you've said that. Yeah. I can't say like I agree as if like, oh yeah, I totally knew that. But like I do agree in a sense because I didn't know that. I didn't think of that.
Crazy when you think about Jason Owe. 4.39 and 0. 4.39 was the 40 time he ran. Absolutely amazing 40 time. 0 is the number of sacks that he had. I include that. You know who does not get a lot of sacks but is an elite run defender? Jadeveon Clowney. You know who did not have a single sack last year? Jadeveon Clowney. It's kind of the same.
Oh my god.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It just is.
Where is he? So I mean, what is his ceiling away as far as like where he would go in this draft? Is this where he would go?
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it here. I could see it maybe if Tennessee wanted to add another pass rusher. I could see maybe that. I could see if New York really wanted to build a defensive line with a pass rushing Carl Lawson and a run stopper. I could see it. I think his floor is somewhere to like pick 37, 38. But I could see it here. I mean, you're not wrong. I could see it. And when you think about what they have in Porter Gustin, Takk McKinley, hopefully being that extra pass rushing side, if you want to go get a run stopper like a Jadeveon Clowney, because you already got Jadeveon Clowney, you can go get Jason Owe. I mean, that would make a lot of sense.
Amazing.
Pick number 27.
So we got the Ravens here at 27, and you have Rashad Bateman. And okay, so I was going to go Azeez Ojulari here because he's still on my board.
Yeah,
And I feel like, they could go that route. I actually ended up going with you. I think Rashad Bateman still being there, they're just gonna have to do that. I think it's too hard to pass him up at that point. You're getting into the Saints could use him, the Packers, the Bills could even do it. I mean, you have another pick. Bateman makes sense.
The crazy thing is I could see them trading this pick. I really could, because
they absolutely could.
Eric DeCosta is a disciple of Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie Newsome did this all the time, moving down draft boards, gaining picks, doing it that way, and they have 31. And I could see a team like Philadelphia, who didn't get their wide receiver in the first round, go get their physical wide receiver to pair with that vertical option in Jalen Reagor with the Rashad Bateman. But there was no trade that would be willing to be accepted when I did the mock draft simulator. So I just went with the best pick. My comp for him is Michael Gallup. Good speed, good power, moves really well on the outside, good perimeters target, really good contested catcher. And again, the run-up wide receiver is about to start with the next couple picks. So if you look at what Hollywood Brown is, and you look at what Mark Andrews is, and you look at what Devin Duvernay is, and you look at what you have on the roster, you don't need a vertical option. You need a physical option. Of the physical options left, the Michael Gallup comp of a Rashad Bateman makes a lot of sense here.
I had a poor man's Alshon Jeffrey. Like not a poor man's Alshon Jeffrey, a poor man's Allen Robinson. That's what I had.
Okay.
I get those two confused.
What I think is that you look at him, is he going to play a lot in the slot? I don't think so. I think and Allen Robinson, they like playing him a little bit more in the slot in Chicago now because it's a mismatch.
He's a better route runner, 100%.
Yeah. And I just think that's the only thing. I get it. Like it's not a terrible comp, but it is. I see where your brain is, at least.
And then pick 28 here. We both have receivers. You have Elijah Moore, who I'll have a little bit later, and I have another Moore, Rondale Moore. I think they go out and they get their Brandon Cooks.
So
simply put, I think that's okay. All right.
So very similar.
Well, what are your thoughts on Traquan Smith? Is he legit? Do they stick with him as the 2 or?
What I liked about Traquan Smith is they made him the 3, but they made him an outside 3. And that's something that I think enough people aren't talking about, is that everyone thinks that the slot is the 3. That's not the case. It's just 3 receivers when you line them up. Elijah Moore to me is a better route runner than most of the slot receivers in this draft class. And he's better at that 10 to 15 yard range, which is where I think Jameis Winston's going to be needing that, with Michael Thomas probably getting the double coverage. The way I look at him is a lot like Antonio Brown when he was coming into Pittsburgh, a guy who's really fun in the red zone, really good after the catch. You can use him in a multitude of ways. And honestly, there was no better receiver at the end of the season in the SEC than Moore. He averaged 13 catches per game, 18 yards per catch a game, and over 200 yards a game in Lane Kiffin's offense. So the guy can run routes. He's a very productive receiver. I like Rondale Moore a lot. That 5'7" frame a little bit worries me. But besides that, if you can play him as a bigger guy, it makes a lot of sense. I think our both heads were in this right spot where you go get your slot guy. You say a Brandon Cooks, who I do think Rondale Moore is a little bit more of a vertical option. I go get my more clean route runner with Elijah Moore.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And then you have Jamin Davis to the Packers, and I have another. We're just crisscrossing, man. We have different wide receivers, and now we have different linebackers. I'm getting Zaven Collins. I think either one. It's so hard because I love Jamin Davis, and I feel like his testing is going to push him in the first round, but I don't know for sure. And so I decided to go with Zaven Collins. I just think that size. I think Green Bay is going to like that size. The fact that he's that mobile, can move around, and they can do a lot of things with him. Of course, Jamin Davis, you can do a lot of things with him. What?
Is he going to play at 270?
No. He dropped, right? He dropped to 260, I want to say.
No, he's 270 right now.
He's 270.
He's 270. That's a defensive end. That's not a linebacker. And trust me, he moves very well, and I think that Zaven Collins could be the guy, but they're going to ask him to slim down. I think
They
that's
should. He shouldn't be 270. That's obnoxious.
You can't play at 270
as an inside. 250 and you're an asset. You drop down to 250 at 6'5" and you run a 4.6. Well, you ran a 4.6 at 4.7 at 270. So who knows what's gonna happen there. But yeah, no, I agree. Talk about Jamin Davis to the audience. I've talked about him before on here, but talk about him to the audience of why he fits the Packers.
Athletic linebacker. That's the biggest thing about him that I think you like more than anything else. That he's a very athletic linebacker who does a very good job of moving inside and out. He's a sideline-to-sideline player. I think the biggest thing of all for him is that when you look at what they're going to run in a 3-4 defense, he can be the guy that when you call on a nickel and you want to take out one of your linebackers, he stays in, he plays your sideline-to-sideline guy. The biggest question I have with him is he has so few starts. He only has 11 career starts. So that I do think is a little bit worrisome, but he was a lightning ball. I see a lot of Darius Leonard in his game, a guy who you can probably play as someone on the outside. If you play him in a 4-3, he can project as a will. If you want to play him in a 3-4, he can play inside. I think he's very good in coverage, very much of what like Zach Cunningham was when he was coming out of Vanderbilt.
That was one of my comps, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those type of guys. He's not a straight cover linebacker. He's not going to be excelling, but if you play him in a 3-4 set, he will be your space linebacker. He won't be your thumper. You won't have him playing towards the line of scrimmage. You'll have him more so being the inside space guy. And athleticism does work. I mean, the more athletic you are, the more you're able to move, the more you're able to play, the more you're able to be effective as a blitzer, the more you're able to be effective as a run stopper, the more tackles you get in open field. It's just a lot of that stuff. So I see a little bit of Zach Cunningham. I see a little bit of Darius Leonard. I do think that athletic frame is going to get him in that first-round conversation. I think
it has to.
Here's the thing. Nobody takes a Green Bay Packers have not taken a wide receiver in the first round since 2002. What makes you think they're going to do it? What makes you think they're going to do it, guys? Everyone's sitting there, and I'm reading all these. Who's the wide receiver that should take a 29? They're not going to. Stop.
Yeah. Well, and they do a nice job of finding the lower tier guys as well. I mean, they do a nice job of finding guys. I mean, look at what's his name, Lazard. Lazard wasn't even a Packer. He wasn't drafted by them. He wasn't even a UDFA for them. He came from Jacksonville.
He came from Jacksonville, and then on top of all that, the biggest thing of all is that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is another guy who was a late round pick. I mean, Robert Tonyan was an undrafted free agent. I mean, they find talent. It works. It's just
absolutely.
The way you go about it is just a little bit difficult.
So the Bills here, Bean said something interesting about them looking more long term. So that got the wheels churning for me. And it seems to me like you were kind of on the money here. You have Jason away there. I have Azeez Ojulari, who I think is, he's a redshirt sophomore. I want to say redshirt sophomore.
Yeah, he's either a redshirt sophomore or he's a pure junior. I know he only has about a year and a half of production. That's and again, my comp for him is Jerry Hughes, so it would make a lot of sense.
Long term.
I think that both of these guys, especially Owe, because I even put in my notes earlier. Hopefully, Leslie Frazier could turn him into not Jadeveon Clowney 2.0. That was what I said. But at the same time, you got to still be good against the run. You still have to add pass rush. That's the weakness for Buffalo. I also though see Buffalo being that one team late trading out if their guy's not there. So I could also see them moving back. I don't see them taking a running back. I think that they have to go edge at some point. I think that this is kind of the spot. Always the one that makes the most sense, and Ojulari is off my board. So if Ojulari is off my board, I go Owe. You're getting a good run defender. You have really good run defenders. Hopefully he can be a good pass rusher. And if he can be a good pass rusher, then there you go. You got a guy who I see upside with, but just not enough upside to take that early.
No, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, like I was saying, I think that they're definitely going to go long term, like they were saying. I mean, you can obviously say things and not mean them, but it just seems like Buffalo, they're in position. They're one of the better teams in football. They can go out and get a guy that maybe isn't ready to contribute day one, and they can spend time developing into a potential star down the road. 31. We both have the Ravens sticking here. I definitely think that they're a trade candidate for sure. to trade back either here or the pick that we were talking about. I have Kwity Paye because he's still there for me. I'm not as high on him as everyone else, so that's why he fell. Zaven Collins, you have, and that scares the piss out of me. Like with them getting
it. Because if he's playing at 270, he's a 3-4 outside linebacker at that point, and that's your Matt Judon replacement. Like that's the thing. Like I don't think enough people are looking at that. My comp for him is Anthony Barr. Like when Anthony Barr was coming out of UCLA, everyone thought that if you played him in a 3-4 defense, he was going to be the edge defender instead of the outside linebacker. If you play him in a 4-3, he was going to be your sandbacker. But what is he? He is a sandbacker who does a lot of blitzing plays the run very well in Mike Zimmer's scheme. It's very similar, but this guy's a lot bigger. This guy's put on a ton of weight. This guy's added that extra muscle. If you're doing that, you're playing him as an edge rusher. And at that point, I think Zaven Collins makes a ton of sense as an edge rusher. And you can make an argument that he possibly is the best edge rusher in this draft class because of what he offers in the run game and as a pass rusher up the middle. So I think you can include that into the conversation. I do think one of these two picks, though, is traded. I just didn't have, the pick done at time.
Yeah, I don't have a trade here at 32. You do. You have Trayvon Merring going to the Dallas Cowboys, which I love. I almost had Dallas trading up here. I actually had them almost taking Boogie Basham, who I'm not as high on, but I keep hearing they really like him.
So I've heard Boogie Basham, I've heard Christian Barmore, and I've heard Trayvon Merrick. Those are the three that I've heard that they very much like. And when you look at what you got your Richard Sherman. You need now your Earl Thomas. You need your guy who's that rangy kind of can do it all kind of player. I like Merrick. Merrick played the most consecutive snaps, the most versatile snaps. That was my bad. He played over 175 snaps, not only as the slot option, but also as the free safety option, also as the strong safety option. So he is very versatile in playing both these roles. That's your Earl Thomas kind of guy. You can play him high in coverage. You can play him in the box. You can play him in your base cover 3. And keep in mind, in a cover 3 defense, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's where your two cornerbacks are going back and you have your rangy guy kind of right in the middle. And that's where Merrick is probably going to do. My comp for him is a Marcus Williams, guy who got better playing against the run, guy who is really good in coverage. Merrick does just that. He's not a center fielder, but you can play him as someone who covers the middle of the field. He has good closing speed. If you're Dan Quinn and you want to get this defense going, and in the NFC East, it's still very winnable, go get yourself a corner, go get yourself a safety. Merrick's not going to be there at 44. He will be there at 32. I think Tampa Bay doesn't need anything. They can trade back. They have the luxury of doing that as the Super Bowl champions. So go ahead and move.
So this is funny because you mentioned Antonio Brown. So I actually have Elijah Moore here to replace Antonio Brown because I feel like negotiating with him is just a pain in the tail. So I feel like they're just going to go out and they're just going to get their receiver. That's how I feel. I mean, he's a guy he might sign like during the year. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, but I just feel like, you got him going. He won a Super Bowl. He's feeling good. I wouldn't be surprised if he's really hard to negotiate and they're not able to sign a deal before, the season starts. I
could see it. I could see it. I wouldn't do it only because you still have Scotty Miller. And basically what you're saying is we're giving up on Scotty Miller. But I do like it. And again, my comp for Elijah Moore is Antonio Brown. So if you're trying to get that red zone guy and that guy who can be very effective in a multitude of ways, I get the more. I really do. The question is, does that mean at this point you're only franchise tagging one more year for Chris Godwin, then you're letting him walk in free agency? I think that's where the conversation starts because both really do well in the slot. I don't know if Elijah Moore's going to do well on the outside. I definitely know that Chris Godwin does better in the slot. If you have a guy for 5 years under contract, you're letting the veteran one walk. That happens 10 out of 10. That always happens.
I mean, they could, try to trade Godwin after the season or something like that. It would definitely be interesting. I mean, I'm curious to know what their thoughts are on Tyler Johnson, who they spent a 5th round pick on.
Yeah.
Who I think Draft Twitter was higher on him than, everybody else.
Draft Twitter was super high on him. All right. Let's get to the Rams mock draft. That's what people are trying to listen to.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Who was your first pick?
All right. So my first pick, I don't know how I got him, and I'm hoping this is the case, but 57, Peyton Turner, edge, Houston. Look, they need an edge defender, okay? I'm over Terrell Lewis. I understand you're an Alabama fan. I like Alabama, okay? Terrell Lewis is the best ability is availability, and I'm not seeing him on the field, okay? So I want to go out, grab a guy. You have, I mean, somehow, some way they got Leonard Floyd. Now you go, you get Peyton Turner, who I have a huge grade on. He's my third edge in this draft. I love Peyton Turner. And he's already said straight up, he'll drop to whatever weight a team needs him. He's not worried about that. He can play with his hand in the dirt. He can play as a stand-up rusher. He'll be fine. And I want to see that on that defense. Get them finally to the point where they have two edge defenders to go with Donald instead of just having one in Leonard Floyd.
So again, like I said, I don't know how it happened this way. It just did. I have Dylan Ray Dunes falling all the way to you guys.
Wow, really?
I do.
That's why when I said Ray Dunes, you're like,
yeah, I have him falling to you at number 7. Do I see it happening? Probably not. But if you do get him, this is your guy who's your long-term replacement for Andrew Whitworth. This is someone who has done a very good job playing well in the pass protection set for Trey Lance, who helped him set all those FCS records in 2019. He also has a big frame where you can move him a little bit around. If you want to play him at the right tackle spot, you can play him there. If you want to play him at the left tackle spot, you can play him there. I think that there's a definite upside with a guy like Ray Dunes. The FCS level, people always talk about it. That does not mean anything to me. I think that there's a lot of talent at Ray Dunes, and this is exactly where I think you get him.
I like the pick, man. You know, Ray Dunes is awesome.
The board happened this way.
He's my fourth OT, so this would be huge. Now, could he kick into guard for the time being?
Yeah, I could, but the problem is that I have a guard of my next pick because again, the draft board liked my picks, so I don't know what really happens here. It's not gonna it's not gonna happen, but that was how it happened.
I wonder if we have the same guard. Who do you have?
I had Quinn Miners all the way falling to me.
Oh, really? I have Ben
Cleveland. Okay, so I had Cleveland. Cleveland would have been an option for me if he was in the 4th round, but Miners fell to me, and I was like, nope. If he's a versatile guy, this is an Ali Marpet player, and a lot of people go, well, you know, D3 schools, you always say Ali Marpet, like that's just a dumb comp. No, Ali Marpet played both center and guard and excelled at it for a while. So the biggest thing that I like is that Miners was asked by the staff down in Mobile to try it out at center, and he was successful. Now, that's the problem, is that he was so dang successful, I don't think he's going to be available at pick number 88. So that's the problem, is that he's not going to be on the clock when you guys are picking. But if he somehow falls, this is somebody who can play guard. This is somebody that can play center. This is somebody that can replace Austin Blythe. I think that that's exactly what you're kind of looking for. Build this offensive line for Matthew Stafford. You spent all these picks for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has to be here. I was hoping for a cornerback. Yeah, I see that. I have a cornerback on as your next pick. Again, the draft board is very, very nice to me. I would take Miners at 57. So would I. But again, my big board worked this way.
Yeah. So next, I'm going to go a Bama guy. So I did a trade. Okay. So I traded with New England. I traded down. So New England takes 103, and we're going to swap 103 and 141. The Rams are going to get 120, 139, and 177.
Okay,
so that's how that works.
So I'm still on the clock then at 103.
Yeah.
And you're so yes. Who did you take at 88?
At 88, I took Ben Cleveland. Somebody right. I think, he tested out of this world. 6'5", 344. If they could play him at center, man, I would do it. Like he can
honestly,
move very
I would
well.
Too. I would too, to be completely honest. I play him at center.
Like I think they'll play Corbett, but if they took Ben Cleveland, don't be surprised. This is an offensive line that has been cross-trained since the dawn of time. I know Aaron Cromer's gone, but I think they're going to continue that with Carberry.
Okay. So I have my pick at 103 still. And I know you do not like this guy. I know you do not have a fan. You're not a fan of this guy. I am a fan of this guy. What position did Troy Hill play?
Corner.
What kind of corner?
Nickel.
Yeah. What do you need? A nickel corner. Who might be the best nickel cornerback on the board still? Somehow he fell. Elijah Molden. Elijah
Oh, how
Molden.
did you know I didn't like Elijah Molden? Am I that
Somebody-
obvious?
Somebody said in the comments you didn't like him. Why'd you give him a 5th-round grade? He's a high-end 3rd-round grade for me. I see a lot of a Desmond King type player in him, someone that you're probably going to play as your run defensive guy. And you got to think about this. There's teams that are going to be playing a lot of short passes. A guy like Elijah Molden, if you want, you can play him at safety. If you don't like him, you can probably play him somewhere later on. I think that you really like a guy like Elijah Molden somewhere in this pick. Troy Hill.
Oof. Oh,
yeah, I know. I
the
want
Washington
to try
guy
too.
who's all obsessed.
Yeah, I like Elijah Molden.
I have a 5th-round grade on him. I
have a 3rd.
I don't know. He just didn't stand out on film to me. Slow, didn't test well, and very, very short arms. I just feel like the Rams, they like those, like their archetype typically is like 5'10", 5'11" corner that has like crazy long arms. And I don't know if they'll go molded, but who knows?
They could. I mean,
for me, no, I'm not knocking you. I mean, hey, if he works out, I will give you all the praise.
It's value at that point. Like that's the way it kind of go.
Yeah, if they pick him at 57, I'm jumping out of my office window. Anyway, 120. I have Dylan Moses. I don't know how he's still here. Look, I love Dylan Moses, and I think everyone now has just decided to sleep on him. And I totally get it, right? You have 2019, he has the torn ACL, and then 2020, he played the entire season with a torn meniscus, according to him, right? And then that TikTok video comes out about that guy just thrashing him. He literally had 4 or 5 plays, and now everyone's like, oh, he's trash. He has no sense of direction. He has no awareness. I'm like, all right, watch other plays, because you could take anybody. You could take Trevor Lawrence throwing, Trevor Lawrence's game against Syracuse was horrible. You could take that game. Okay. You could always do that. Nitpicking. When I look at Dylan Moses, no, he didn't test, but if he did test, I still am willing to bet he's a hell of an athlete despite having a torn ACL and a torn meniscus. I understand the injury concern, but in the 4th round, he's my number 2 linebacker in the draft. He's got immense ceiling if he can get back to being healthy and stay healthy. And I love the Rams training staff regardless with Reggie Scott. I feel comfortable. You bring him in, finally get a linebacker, because you haven't had a legit linebacker. Well, you could argue Ogletree, but you haven't had a legit linebacker since James Laurinaitis. I know they don't value it as much, but in the 4th round, why the hell not are you going to take a guy like Dylan Moses?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I do. I mean, it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. If he stays healthy, it's a really, really good player. I don't know if he's top 15 player, but he definitely is a higher end player. I think that you can make an argument that he was kind of up there with the Pete Warners, with the Baron Brownings, kind of that low end, late, like early first. I mean, early second, mid second kind of player. He fell off the board. At this pick, it's just about value. Now, do you have a pick before 141? Because I think that's the next pick on my board. Okay, so go ahead and get your next pick in.
So I have 139. I have them going out and getting my number 2 safety in the draft, James Wiggins out of Cincinnati. Look, they were considering bringing back John Johnson. That was the discussion that was had. They ultimately decided not to. John Johnson wanted to come back, so they just decided not to. They draft Taylor Rapp. They drafted Jordan Fuller in the 6th last year, and they drafted Burgess in the 3rd. You'd say, well, that's enough. I'm not sold that they view Taylor Rapp necessarily as a safety. They look at him as a pseudo linebacker, guy that can play in the box. And so for me, the way Nick Scott played was interesting as a 7th round special team guy out of Penn State, but I really like James Wiggins. This is a guy that's a playmaker. He's going to take the ball away. He makes big time plays in big time situations. He's very athletic. He obviously has the cover skills, but the thing I love about him, he's a willing tackler. I'm so tired of these guys that like they barely wrap up and stuff. I'm going to get a guy I know in James Wiggins. I think people are sleeping on the fact that I was able to get him at 139 would tell me that he could instantly come in and be that 3rd safety and set the tone for the Rams. I love James Wiggins. And honestly, they had 2 other really good safeties. The other guy's name escapes me, and then Derek Forrest. So Cincinnati had some pretty good safeties.
Yeah, Cincinnati have some good safeties. I wouldn't be shocked if they take a safety here. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Josh Bledsoe out of Missouri.
I like him.
I think that'd be another guy that probably is in play. Pick number 141 is next for me on my board. Is that next for you?
I have 177.
So you gave up 141?
Yeah, so I did the pick swap, so I would get another.
That was it. Okay. So I'm at 141 on my board. I went with Cameron Sample out of Tulane. I went, if you want to go get an edge rusher, this was somebody who probably has a little bit more upside, someone who I think you can develop a little bit longer. I think he's kind of a poor man's Jordan Smith from UAB. You can give him some time. I think that if you allow him to be playing in the running game a little bit more, that's exactly what you're kind of looking for. Again, this is a 3-4 defense where you brought back Leonard Floyd on a massive deal. So hopefully Floyd works out. Once his contract is up, I could see them partially, parting ways with him with guaranteed money if he doesn't hit at that level. At that point, I think Sample would be a really, really talented player to be able to go after. So I think Cameron Sample at pick number 141 adds value at a position of need because edge is always important. But number 2, he also adds value against the run.
I like that. I mean, I'm a little higher on his teammate, Patrick Johnson. He was my 7th edge. I ended up loving him. I think PFF loved him too. But 177, I decided to go with my draft crush. Many people know this. I don't know how he's there. I think he'll go in the 2nd or 3rd. Simi Fehoko out of Stanford. I think you're getting a guy who is very similar in athletic ability and size as Josh Gordon. And, this is somebody who gave Davis Mills every opportunity on the deep ball. Will go up and pluck the ball out of the air, but he ran, I think it was a 4.37 unofficial. He can flat out fly. And if they're looking for a deep threat, which it seems to me like they are, because they got Deshaun Jackson, but there's no way they signed Deshaun Jackson thinking, this guy will play all 17 games. So you get Simi Fehoko here at 177. And to me, I think this is a great pick because, Fehoko is somebody long-term. Now you have size. You look at Cooper Kupp, he's 6'2". He doesn't play above the rim. I mean, he does it every now and then, but not consistently the way Simi Fehoko can. And this guy automatically becomes the fastest guy on the team. Maybe Deshaun is a little, I'd say Deshaun maybe is a little bit faster, but Fehoko has the speed, he has the size, and now you're getting a red zone threat, that big-bodied receiver going up and having him in, those one-on-one fade situations. You also have Matthew Stafford, who will literally hit any throw on the field. I don't have to worry about, the dump-offs with Jared Goff. He will test defenses. And so for me, if he doesn't care about throwing to Danny Amendola, making him look good, Quintez Cephas, the list goes on, Simi Fehoko would be great as a 5th receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, and especially with the loss of Josh Reynolds, I think that really helps out a ton where you go get a guy like Simi Fehoko. Pick number 209, I think, is next, right?
Pick 209.
Yeah, so 209. Okay, so I have a linebacker. Finally, I have one that I actually like really, really well. It's Garrett Wallow out of TCU. I think they keep. Yeah. See, it's Garrett Wallow out of TCU. This is somebody that I definitely think is going to go an under the radar kind of move. And kind of what I said about Jamin Davis, where you want to pair him with a thumper. That's the thumper. This is the guy that's going to make a ton of tackles. This is the guy that's going to be really good. Somebody who plays very well with James, like a James Laurinaitis type player. Get him in the line of scrimmage, makes a ton of tackles, does a very good job of keeping plays alive. I think that that's what you're kind of looking for at this point. Guys who can be playmakers, guys who can be special teamers that maybe step up in a year from now, being somebody as that player. Garrett Wallow, he falls to me at 209. I had to go ahead and get up here.
Same. I mean, I already picked a linebacker, but I'm looking at this linebacker group and I think it's solid because we've grown accustomed to just, and I think the thing is, I really like Troy Reeder more than the rest of people. I think he's continued to get better. He's a UDFA out of Delaware, a surefire sign that, hey, they could go UDFA. They continue to develop guys. You look at Corey Littleton, another UDFA who had success. But you have guys like Micah Kaiser, 5th rounder that's never healthy. He's always hurt. You have Traven Howard, who's coming off a torn ACL. And then I like Christian Roseboom out of South Dakota State, but he didn't play at all last year. Kenny Young is kind of a jag, in my opinion. He makes some plays here and there, but overall, I think you're getting, a big time change of the guard in Dylan Moses. If he can stay healthy, he could be a big time linebacker for you. And then Garrett Wallow, who I also have, I would start those two as time goes on. I think they could really develop in that role. I would be surprised. Garrett Wallow, if he's not on the Rams, he's going to get picked late. I have him as a top 10 linebacker in this draft, but he's going to get picked late. And I'm telling you, this guy is going to beat out a veteran for a starting job. He is that good, and I won't be surprised when it happens.
Yeah, I could see that. I think if they wait till 7th round, Buddy Johnson from Texas A&M's a name to watch for. This is exactly the kind of thumper role, and he's a very good veteran leadership kind of player. But our last pick for the Rams at 252, I think it is.
Yeah.
I went with just best player available at that point. Somebody put up here about how, do you go quarterback because of you have somebody, you have Walford going into free agency next year. You could do that. There's always a quarterback, though, that falls. The guy that I would have gone with if he was here would have been Ian Book. I think that Ian Book, at this point, you just go get a guy who's a proven winner and try and figure it out. In a very similar style, but a different type of player than Walford is. He was gone at this point, so I just went best player available, and that was Robert Jones from Middle Tennessee. Somehow he fell to the 7th round, and this is a guy that I think when you think of these late round gems, these Michael Onwenu-Wewus who can play anywhere, I think you're going to play him at center, guard, or other guard. I think he's a perfect interior offensive lineman. He definitely plays for a smaller role type guy because he comes from a smaller school in the Conference USA. But he is somebody who, when you watch the film on him, he opens good running lanes. He's an overall decent pass protector. If you had to start him in a pinch, you go for it. But at the end of the day, you never have too many offensive linemen. You never have too many defensive linemen. Go ahead and just get whichever one that ranks higher at this point for Les Snead. For me, as acting a Les Snead clone, apparently, I'm going to go ahead and go with Robert Jones from Middle Tennessee as my final pick for the Rams.
All right, so let's end this on a high note. He won't be there. I'm just letting you know. He's just not going to be here in the 7th round, but somehow I was able to get Tay Gowan out of UCF.
Okay.
He got a lot of criticism for opting out of the season, but he opted out because he had a premature kid, and so he had to take care of his kid. But he tested very well. And when I watch him on tape, not only does he have the biggest shoulder pads I've ever seen in my life, but the guy can tackle. And I'm looking at just the athleticism that he would bring. I'm looking versatility. And at this point, you could take a flyer on a guy. I looked at Mark Gilbert at Duke. Love what he brings as far as a late round pick that has, 2017 tape that was outstanding, looking like a first rounder at one point. But I decided to go take Allen here because I want that versatility on the outside. And I think he could play nickel. Now, the Rams have not figured out what they're doing with Darius Williams. So people need to stop. He's signed for this year on the restricted, he signed his tender or whatever for the restricted free agency.
Time out. Kellen Jones. Kellen Mond's not going to be available in round 7. There's not a chance. There's not a chance. I cover A&M. It's one of my other side gigs. There is not a chance he is there in round 7. I'm sorry I had to cut you off. But yeah, Darius Williams is signed for one more year. He's signed for one more year. But yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a chance.
So I look at it and I'm like, and I honestly like that you're addressing corner because actually what I'll tell you is that Peyton Turner, honestly, they both were there and it was really hard to make the decision. But I went with Peyton Turner over Melifonwu. Those are my two diehard options at 57. If they are there, I'm not trading back. And I love trading back when you don't have a first round pick because you want to get all those picks. So for me, there wasn't a corner that I wanted to take the way the board worked out until this, and I was able to get Tay Gowan at 252. He won't be there. He'll be a 5th round pick, 4th round pick, maybe. He will not be there in the 7th round. He's buzzing. I don't see it.
How about Tommy Kramer with the last pick? Huge ND guard we could use. I mean, yeah, I don't think he was available when I was picking, but I just went with literally the best guard that was ranked on TDN at that point. So I just went Robert Jones. I mean, again, I think you can get a guard. I think you need a guard. I don't think enough people understand part of the reason we talk about Matthew Stafford in such a high light is because of everything that he had to go through in Detroit from bad rosters, especially terrible offensive line play. So for me, as somebody looking at this from a Rams perspective, your defense is really important, but you have some weapons that you haven't even tried to really use yet. Guys like a Van Jefferson that I think could take that next step with Josh Reynolds now gone. I think guys like
I love Van Jefferson.
Yeah. I think a guy like a healthy, a healthy Henderson makes a lot of sense to pair, with Cam Akers, and hopefully both of them have a bounce back here too. I think you got to build that offensive line. I mean, this right now might be one of the best receiving cores that we've ever seen for Matthew Stafford in a while. Yeah, come on, Kellen. That's mean, Cole. Cole. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be mean. It's been a long night. Look at the bags under my eyes, guys. Come on. I'm
dude.
It's a lot, but yeah, I think that when you look at Matthew Stafford, I definitely understand where we go a big offensive line. I missed the Rams pick at 57. I took Dylan Ray-Dunes from North Dakota State. He somehow fell to me. I'm not sure he will. I do think you have to go with an offensive lineman really early, if possible, if you don't go edge. Jake, I know Jake's pick is available there, and it makes a lot of sense. It's a little too rich for me at 57. If you trade back a little bit and maybe get some extra picks, I would gladly take that pick. It's just a little too high there, but I see them going with a guy like Dylan Ray-Dunes, maybe a Jackson Carman from Clemson, maybe a Spencer Brown if you like him, a James Hudson if you like him. It's still too high for me, but I think you go offensive line at that pick.
And I'll say this, we didn't talk about him, but I just want to mention him. Drew Dahlman, I think, is 100% going to be a pick at some point for the Rams. It's not who I went with, right? But I think that familiarity with the OC, if you're going to start a center, for Matthew Stafford, you're going to start a rookie center, get a guy with familiarity with the offensive coordinator. And he fits their mold. They like the barely 300-pound, 6'3" guy that has, mobility to get to the second level. Dahlman's solid. I mean, he's not, blow the world up amazing or anything like that. But if you get him in the 4th or 5th round, I mean, that's a hell of a value in my opinion, for Dahlman.
All right, guys, I'm getting really tired, so I'll give you 3 questions if you have any for me. Let's get this going. Let's start with the first one. So I got one more question after this. All right, how do you feel about Van Jefferson taking a big league next year? I like it. I do. I think that he has a lot of capability. I very much like what we saw from him at Florida as a little bit more of a vertical option. I think that when you pair what you have with him for with Cooper Kupp in the slot and what he can do, I think what you have with your kind of possessional guy in Robert Woods, it makes a lot of sense to have him as your vertical threat on the outside. So I think he can take the big step. I think the biggest thing for him is that he has a quarterback who has a little bit of a better arm in Matthew Stafford throwing the deep ball to him. That's the biggest step for him.
Yes, definitely. All right, man. Well, you've been amazing.
I'll finish this. I'll finish
you should.
For you guys. I will. All right. If Carlos Basham falls to 57, what do you guys think? You take him, but he's not going to fall to 57. I don't see it. I can't see it. I think that Boogie goes too high. I'm not high on Boogie at all. I'm just going to be completely honest. I'm not high on Boogie.
I'm not either. I would take Peyton over him.
But I think if he's there, you take him if Peyton's gone or if you really trust your offensive line. I think that makes sense. Is anyone think Quinn Miners is a reach of 57? No, I don't. It just fell that way. It just fell to where Ray-Dunes is higher on my board than Miners. So again, that's who I go with. And that's kind of the basis of that. What linebacker would you take at 57? What would you do?
What would I do? Yeah. I mean, that's tough. I mean, if I have to take a linebacker gun to my head, there's a good chance Jabril Cox is already off the board. So yeah, that's tough. And I don't like Nick Bolton as much as everyone else.
I think Nick Bolton's gone. I like Nick Bolton. I think he's a for sure second round pick, but I like Nick Bolton. I don't like that people are saying he's a good cover backer. That's what I don't like.
No,
and if that's
he's not Devin Bush. People need to stop with that.
No, he's not. If he's there, it's Jabril Cox. That's who I take. I take Jabril Cox if he's there. If he's not, I go Baron Browning. If he's there, if gun in my head, I had to go one of them. I would go Baron Browning. I'm also not high on Baron Browning, and I'm not high on the guy that everyone keeps saying, Chaz Surratt. I'm just not. I'm not
either.
I've not been high on Chaz Surratt, so I'm sorry for
I'm sad. I thought I was gonna like the Surratt brothers. I don't like either of them.
I didn't like Sage. If
Sage is there, nothing at the Senior Bowl. Nothing.
If Sage is there though in the 7th round, maybe I take him. I mean, maybe. Okay. But I'm not taking him early, and I was very excited that they were going to be at the Senior Bowl. I was very excited. And Sage
same here. Nothing. I really liked them post or pre whatever.
Luis Ramos, Jamin Davis. I have him going 29, so I don't have him at 57 even being available. If he's available at 57, yeah, you run to the freaking podium and scream it up and down because it's an athletic linebacker that.
Oh, you know what, McGrone. That's probably where I would go.
It's too high.
And even still,
I would take McGrone. I would take McGrone at the 88 pick or whatever it is. I would take McGrone there. I really would. Yeah. I like McGrone a lot, but 57 is too rich for me. I would go Jabril Cox if he's there. Anybody got one last question before I call it a night for me? You got 10 seconds. Green Bay taking a linebacker at 29. Dude, they haven't taken a quarter. They haven't taken a wide receiver since 2002 in the first round. They haven't done that. It's not like that. That's a Green Bay pick. Like 100%. Thoughts on Grant Sturd? I haven't studied a single bit of film on him.
So I watched him. He's a great special teamer, but he's like that 5'11" linebacker, kind of similar to the one guy that came out of Utah that Dallas got last year. I want to say.
That who got Dallas?
Yeah. Oh God, what's his name? Everyone was talking. He didn't test very well. Stewart's a better athlete. You're getting a special teamer that could develop into a backup, priority backup backup linebacker. So
last question, and I'm done after this. I got work I got to finish up. Does Asante Samuel fall to 57? If he does, that has to be the pick because of you need a nickel corner and you need an outside corner, and he is going to be that exact guy. Any chance he falls? I do not think so. I could see him going as high as number 28 to the New Orleans Saints. I think that he is somebody who is definitely going to get it. One more question. Get it in really fast. I'll answer this real fast. If a Ram takes a receiver, which one do you like for them? At 57, yeah, man. I don't really know.
I feel like they'd go Eskridge.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but Eskridge is limited. Eskridge is a slot receiver.
What about Nico?
So it's too rich for me. Nico is my number 100 player. On my big board, he literally is my. I do Thompson's top talent, and it is 100 players. I do the 100 players that I very much like, and I just go to the rest and just trust everyone else's opinion on that. Nico Collins was my very last 100 player. He literally comes in at number 100. So at 57, it'd be a little too race. Okay. Do we still think a seed, Creed, or Melifonwu at 57? If Melifonwu's there, I take him. I don't think he's there. And then I'll end it with this. Best 7th round quarterback. We're done. We're done after this. I always go with the winner. Because if you can't teach how to win, Ian Book is the all-time leader in wins for Notre Dame. Ian Book is the all-time leader in wins for Notre Dame. I can get him better at reading defenses. I can get him better at anything else. I need him to be proven that he can win. Ian Book is the guy if he's there in the 7th round. And I think that he will get overdrafted because of teams are always going to love quarterbacks and somebody's going to be high on him. But if he's in the 7th round, that is it. No more questions. Good night.
No, we're done. Hey, yeah, you've been amazing, man. It's been nearly 2.5 hours. Thank you so much. I know you're really busy, and I really do appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. I had a blast.
I did too. It's going to be a damn good time. Ian Book won because of that defense in the running game. He still won. I mean, let's just be real. He still won. he still won. Nobody gives a crap on how you win.
If Ian Book was 6'4", he'd be drafted in the 3rd round. That's all I'm gonna say.
You still freaking the biggest, the all-time winner at Texas is Colt McCoy. He was drafted in the 2nd round, and
he's still in the NFL.
And he's still in the NFL. Yeah, I could have won. So could a lot of people. Thank you so much all for watching. Just remember that if you guys want to listen to my full mock draft coverage, I will be on Sports Map Radio here in Houston, Texas. You can listen on sportsmapradio.com with me and Jake Asman all 4 hours of the very first round. We will have instant coverage, instant analysis, very similar to what we did right here. But it'll be about another extra hour and a half. So make sure you tune in. If you guys want to follow me, I'm at Mr. Cole Thompson. Just my first and last name. I am a Mr. Don't forget that. And I will gladly be back on the show anytime. Jake, thanks so much for having me. I am very, very excited to be watching you grow and develop as a person, and more importantly, as an analyst. So congratulations. I very much am glad that I was able to be on this. Make sure that you always follow Jake, presented by manscaped.com.
Appreciate you, my guy. All right, guys, we're signing off. Let this guy go get some rest, although he's going to go work if I know him. But that's going to do it. I know. I'm the same way, man. But that's going to do it. Love y'all. You guys stay safe, and we'll talk soon.